If you told me a 2026 drama about a delivery guy would have me sitting there whisper yelling at my screen like I'm watching the final minutes of a football match, I would have laughed in your face. And then do a Wanita Satu Kurir shows up and goes, "Oh, you think this is going to be cute? You think this is just a light rom-com with a scooter and a couple of flirty scenes? No. This thing is messy. It's corporate sabotage with a side of fake dating blackmail, topped with a full-on femme fatale who treats the male lead like he's a prize she already won and refuses to return. It's the kind of drama where you keep telling yourself, okay, after this episode I'm going to sleep, and then the ending hits and suddenly it's 3 a.m. and you're bargaining with your own conscience. And yes, we're talking about it right now on Bongo Gaming, so if you like reviews where I'm actually honest and occasionally a little unwell about plot decisions, you already know what to do with that subscribe button. Slide in quietly, stay for the chaos, and let's get into it. So the premise sounds simple at first. Chen Kuyuin is a courier. Not a CEO in disguise, not a genius hacker pretending to be poor, not a secretaire with amnesia. Just a courier who is very good at his job, very observant, and apparently has the worst luck in the history of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The drama opens with him doing what couriers do, dodging traffic, running up staircases, getting that "why are you late" attitude from people who chose same-day shipping like it's a personality trait. And immediately, I love that the show actually makes his work feel physical. He's sweaty, he's rushing, he's calculating routes, he's dealing with elevators that don't work. It's grounded in a way that makes everything that happens later feel even more insane, because he feels like a real guy, and real guys do not deserve to be dragged into billionaire chess games and romantic turf wars. The inciting incident is deliciously stressful. Chen Kuyuin is dropping off documents at Qingyun Group, and the show does this slick thing with perspective. You see the glossy corporate lobby, the calm receptionist smiles, the security gates, the perfect lighting, and then you cut to Chen Kuyuin's POV where he's clocking tiny details like a survival skill. The way a suit jacket hangs weird. The way a badge is angled. The way someone holds a folder like it's too precious. And then boom, he catches a document thief mid-act. And I'm not even exaggerating. The pacing of that entire sequence is basically a mini-thriller inside episode 1. The director uses these quick snaps of sound, paper sliding, heel clicking, the security gate beeping in the background like a countdown, and Chen Kuyuin just freezes for a second like, am I about to become a person with problems? Yes, sir. You are. What really sells that moment isn't just the action, it's the character choice. Chen Kuyuin doesn't go superhero. He doesn't do some ridiculous flying kick. He does what a courier would do, he blocks the exit, he yells for security, he uses the delivery cart like a barrier, and he tries to keep eyes on the folder. It's scrappy. It's awkward. It's panicked. It feels like someone making decisions in real time, not someone following choreography. And when the thief bolts and a couple of papers go fluttering like little white flags of doom, the camera follows the pages instead of the people for a beat, and I loved that because it visually says, this is what matters. These pieces of paper are about to ruin lives. That's where Qingyun Group comes in, and this show is absolutely in its element when it's doing corporate tension. Qingyun isn't just a company. It's shot like a castle. Glass, steel, cold blue tones, long corridors that make you feel like you're walking into judgment. And when the dust settles and they realize Chen Kuyuin basically saved them from a massive leak, it's not treated like a cute, thank you so much, moment. It's treated like, okay, now we have a witness, we have a loose end, and we have a potential liability. Which is realistic, and also, ominous. Enter Jiang Shuiying, and let me tell you, she does not arrive like a normal female lead. She arrives like a storm wearing a designer coat. The first time we get a clean shot of her, the sound drops a little, like the show wants you to pay attention. Her heels are crisp, her posture is weaponized, and her eyes do that thing where she's smiling but you can tell she's doing math in her head about how to control the room. I know some people hate characters like this because they think it's cold CEO cliché, but the actress gives Jiang Shuiying this razor-sharp self-control that feels earned, not performative. She doesn't glare for drama. She doesn't shout to prove she's powerful. She speaks softly, and everyone else adjusts their breathing around her. And then she does something that made me literally pause and go, oh, we're doing this. We're doing this. She doesn't just thank Chen Kuyuin and send him on his way. She starts testing him. Little questions. Little traps. Why were you in that hallway? Did you see anyone else? Who do you think would benefit? And Chen Kuyuin, bless him, answers like a guy who is trying to be helpful while also trying not to die. He's honest, but he's careful, and you can see him realizing that saving the day might come with a price tag he didn't agree to. Now here is the thing, the fake dating setup in this drama is not the fluffy kind where they're like, let's pretend at the company gala and then we'll fall in love. No. Jiang Shuiying basically corners him into it. She doesn't hold a gun to his head, but she wields power the way a gun works. She frames it like a mutual benefit, yet the way the scene is shot makes it obvious he's not really free to say no. The camera puts her slightly higher in the frame, him slightly lower, and the background is all Qingyun's polished marble like a reminder, you're in her world. When she says she needs a boyfriend to stabilize certain internal politics and distract external predators sniffing around her leadership, it's not romantic. It's strategic. And when she slides in the part about how his witness statement could be complicated if he's not cooperative, I swear my eyebrows hit my hairline. This is where a lot of dramas would make the male lead dumb just to keep the plot moving. But Chen Kuyuin isn't dumb. He's outmatched. There's a difference. He tries to negotiate. He tries to set boundaries. He's like, I'm just a courier. I'm not trained for this. And Jiang Shuiying hits him with this look that basically says, no one is trained for being useful, you either adapt or you get used. And the actor playing Chen Kuyuin sells the discomfort so well. He does this tiny swallow, his jaw flexes, he half smiles like he's trying to keep things polite, and you can see the moment he realizes he's been recruited into a game he can't even see the board for. And just when you think the drama is going to be about the tension between those two, this reluctant fake couple dynamic, class differences, corporate danger, Black Widow steps onto the stage and flips the whole vibe like someone just turned the lights red in a room that used to be blue. They call her Black Widow for a reason, and yes, it's dramatic, but it works. She's not introduced with a cute meet cute. She's introduced with a threat. The first scene with her is shot like a noir fantasy, deep shadows, a slow pan over a glass of something expensive, a cigarette ember glow even though she's not smoking like it's the vibe of her existence, and then her face in half-light with that expression of amused hunger. She's the kind of character who doesn't just walk into a room, she arrives and the room gets quieter. And the actress plays her like she's always entertained, like she's watching humans perform and she's deciding which one she wants to break. The craziest part is how the show makes it plausible that she would want Chen Kuyuin. Because if you hear, femme fatale obsessed with a courier, you might go, okay, sure. But the script actually lays crumbs. Black Widow has been circling Qingyun, chasing these documents, working with people who think they're using her when she's clearly using them. She's surrounded by slick suits and predictable greed. And then Chen Kuyuin, this regular guy with dirt under his nails and honest eyes, unexpectedly disrupts the plan. He doesn't flirt with her. He doesn't fall at her feet. He doesn't even recognize what she is at first. He looks at her like she's just another person in the way. And that, apparently, is her favorite flavor. Their first real interaction is one of those scenes where you can feel the oxygen change. Chen Kuyuin is leaving the building, still shaken, and Black Widow approaches him like she's already read the entire book of his life and found the page where he breaks. She says something that sounds like a compliment but lands like a hook. And the actor playing Chen Kuyuin does this perfect, polite confusion thing, like he's trying to decide if he should be scared or just annoyed. Meanwhile she's smiling like she's about to ruin his week for fun. What I enjoyed, honestly speaking, is that the show doesn't make Jiang Shuiying instantly jealous in a childish way. Her reaction to Black Widow is not, who is that woman near my man? It's, that woman is a predator, and she's circling my asset. Because let's be real, at this point, Chen Kuyuin is not her boyfriend emotionally, he's her chess piece publicly. And that's what makes the romantic tension so spicy later, because the boundaries keep shifting. Jiang Shuiying starts with control, but the more Chen Kuyuin gets hurt by all this, the more you see her internal conflict leak out through cracks she can't patch fast enough. Let's talk about Chen Kuyuin as a lead, because a lot rides on him. If he's bland, the entire triangle collapses into two powerful women fighting over a cardboard cutout. But the performance gives him this stubborn decency that becomes the whole point. He's not trying to conquer anyone. He's trying to survive with his morals intact. There's this recurring thing he does where he pauses before answering, not because he's slow, but because he's weighing what honesty will cost. And that little habit becomes heartbreaking later, because you watch him learn that being truthful doesn't protect you when people weaponize truth. The drama also gives him a life outside the main plot, and thank God, because it makes him feel like a person rather than a prop. You see his cramped apartment, the way he keeps his delivery gear neatly hung like it's armor, the instant noodles, the old fan that rattles like it's going to fly apart. There's a neighbor auntie character who asks nosy questions and feeds him like he's her adopted son, and it's one of those small touches that warms the story without derailing it. And then once the fake dating begins, those small domestic details become painful because you realize his simple life is being invaded by people who treat privacy like an inconvenience. The fake dating contract, metaphorically speaking, is signed the moment Jiang Shuiying drags him into the public eye. There's this press-adjacent moment where she, accidentally, gets photographed with him, and the editing there is so sharp. You see the flash, you hear the camera shutters like gunfire, you see Chen Kuyuin's pupils widen, and you can tell he wants to vanish into the pavement. Meanwhile Jiang Shuiying turns slightly toward him, not quite touching him, just close enough to imply intimacy. That's her specialty, suggestion. She doesn't need to lie loudly. She just needs to stand in the right place so other people lie for her. And the show actually has fun with the awkwardness of it, without turning Chen Kuyuin into a clown. There's a scene where she coaches him on how to behave like her boyfriend at a company function, and it's not, hold my hand and smile. It's, don't flinch when someone insults you, don't answer questions directly, don't show fear, let me lead. It's basically media training for emotional warfare. He tries, he messes up, he looks like he wants to evaporate, and I was cringing in the best way because it feels so believable. Like, if you were a normal person suddenly dating a corporate ice queen for PR, would you be smooth? No? You'd be sweating through your shirt and praying nobody asks what wine you like. This drama's dialogue is a big reason it works. It's not poetic in a flowery way. It's sharp, modern, and it has that bite where characters don't say what they mean, but you understand exactly what they mean anyway. Jiang Shuiying has lines that sound like business phrases, yet they hit emotionally because she uses them to keep distance. There's one exchange where Chen Kuyuin asks her, quietly, why she chose him. And she answers with something like, because you were there. And on paper that's nothing. But the way she says it, it feels like a confession of how she views people, not as souls, as opportunities. Then she catches herself, like she realizes she sounded too honest, and she adds a softer justification, but it's too late. Chen Kuyuin heard the first version. Black Widow's lines are the opposite. She speaks like she's licking the edge of a knife. Everything is teasing, everything is double meaning. She'll say something that could be interpreted as flirtation, then her eyes go cold and you realize it was also a warning. And I have to give props to the writing for not making her crazy in a lazy way. She's not unstable. She's deliberate. She's confident. She's just morally unbothered. That's what makes her scary. Visually, Wanita Satu Kurir is way more stylish than I expected. The cinematography loves reflections, glass walls, car windows, elevator doors, phone screens. Characters are constantly framed through something, like the show is reminding you nobody is fully visible, everyone is filtered through perception and agenda. When Chen Kuyuin is alone, the colors are warmer, more natural. When he's at Qingyun, it shifts into cooler tones, controlled lighting, minimal shadows. When Black Widow is involved, the palette gets darker, richer, more contrast-heavy, like the world is slipping into a more dangerous genre. That's not an accident. It's the director speaking without dialogue. The background score deserves its own little rant because it's manipulative in the exact way I like. There's this main motif for Chen Kuyuin that's simple, almost humble, like a few piano notes that never fully resolve. Jiang Shuiying's motif is more structured, strings, tight rhythm, almost like a metronome. Black Widow gets this low synth pulse that creeps in before she even appears, and once you notice it, you start feeling dread the moment the sound fades into that frequency. The sound design also does this thing where it amplifies tiny noises during tense scenes, the click of a pen, the rustle of a document folder, the buzz of a phone on a table. It makes the stakes feel immediate, like the world is holding its breath. Now, pacing. Because I know some of you are allergic to slow burn setups. The first few episodes move fast plot-wise, but emotionally it's a controlled drip. The show doesn't hand you instant romance. It gives you friction. It gives you resentment. It gives you awkward teamwork. Chen Kuyuin keeps trying to exit the situation like a sane person, and each time, a new complication hooks him back in. At first I was like, okay, this is convenient, but then the writing cleverly makes the hooks feel like consequences of his initial involvement. He saved Qingyun, so he's now on someone's radar. He's on the radar, so he becomes leverage. He becomes leverage, so he becomes bait. It escalates in a way that feels like a trap tightening, not like the plot dragging him around for laughs. One supporting character I have to mention is Jiang Shuiying's right-hand assistant, the kind of person who smiles politely while quietly controlling the building's oxygen supply. This assistant character is fantastic because she's not evil, but she's loyal to the job, not to feelings. She treats Chen Kuyuin like a temporary file that needs managing. There's a scene where Chen Kuyuin tries to ask her for help, thinking she might be sympathetic, and she just gives him this neutral look and says something along the lines of, "Your discomfort is not part of the company's risk assessment." I laughed, and then I felt bad for laughing, because wow. Imagine being told your emotions are irrelevant in corporate terms. That's the whole theme right there. The villains on the corporate side aren't cartoonish either. The document theft isn't just a random crime, it's tied to internal factions and external competitors who want Qingyun's projects and patents. The show sprinkles in boardroom scenes that could have been boring, but they are shot with enough tension, tight close-ups, uncomfortable silences, the way characters sip tea like it's a dominance move, that it stays entertaining. Jiang Shuiying is constantly tested, and you can see why she's built herself into a fortress. People around her are waiting for her to slip, not because they hate her personally, but because power makes people hungry. And then there's the way Chen Kuyuin becomes a walking vulnerability for her. Because he's public now. He's visible. He's easy to target. Watching him realize that is genuinely upsetting. There's this moment where he goes back to his usual delivery route and notices a car following him for a few seconds too long, and his whole body tenses. The actor nails the fear without overdoing it. His eyes flick to the mirrors, his breathing changes, and he keeps pedaling like if he stops moving, he'll be swallowed. And suddenly the cute, courier life intro from episode 1 feels like it belongs to another person. Now can we just talk about chemistry, because that's what everyone secretly shows up for, even if you pretend you're here for the corporate intrigue. Chen Kuyuin and Jiang Shuiying have that tense, reluctant chemistry that comes from two people who don't speak the same emotional language but keep being forced into proximity. Their scenes are full of little micro moments, him offering her a bottle of water without thinking, her hesitating before taking it like she forgot how receiving kindness works, him noticing she's tired, her refusing to admit it. It's not fireworks. It sparks in a locked room. Chen Kuyuin and Black Widow, meanwhile, are pure danger chemistry. It's the kind where you're like, this is hot, and then immediately, this is a bad idea, and then immediately again, but I get why the show is doing it. She pushes his boundaries on purpose. She invades his space, then watches to see if he'll submit or resist. And Chen Kuyuin resists, which only entertains her more. There's a scene where she leans in and says something soft, almost intimate, and Chen Kuyuin just steps back and says, very plainly, that he doesn't want trouble. And she smiles like he told her a bedtime story. That dynamic is messed up, but it's acted so well that you can't look away. What surprised me is how the show doesn't make the two women feel like they exist only to fight over him. They are fighting, yes. But they are also fighting for control, for survival, for ego, for revenge, for their own private definitions of winning. Jiang Shuiying's obsession with managing perception comes from being in a position where one wrong rumor could topple her. Black Widow's obsession with possessing what she wants feels like it comes from a lifetime of being underestimated and deciding she'll never ask permission again. Chen Keyuan is the spark, but the powder keg existed long before him. Costume design is doing heavy lifting here too. Jiang Shuiying's wardrobe is all clean lines, structured shoulders, muted expensive colors. She looks like she's wearing armor tailored by someone who hates weakness. Even when she's casual, she's still in control of the silhouette. Black Widow dresses like a temptation and a threat at the same time, sleek blacks, deep reds, fabrics that catch light like a trap. Chen Keyuan's clothes stay simple, practical, often a little worn, and as the episodes go on, you notice the subtle shift. He starts wearing slightly nicer pieces when he's forced into Jiang Shuiying's world, but he never looks fully comfortable in them. The clothes sit on him like a borrowed identity. Editing is another standout. The show loves smash cuts from intimate moments to corporate coldness. Like, you'll have Chen Keyuan and Jiang Shuiying in a car, silence heavy, almost tender for a second, and then it cuts to a board member slamming a folder on a table. It keeps you unsettled, like you're not allowed to relax. Transitions often use motion, doors closing, elevators rising, cars passing, so it feels like the characters are constantly being moved around by forces bigger than them. One of the early twists that genuinely got me was how quickly the "thank you for saving us" narrative flips into "you're now a liability we must manage." Chen Keyuan thinks he did the right thing and expects the world to reward him with peace. Instead, Qingyun's internal security starts monitoring him for his protection, which is corporate speak for "you are property adjacent." There's a scene where he notices his phone behaves oddly and he suspects tracking, and when he confronts Jiang Shuiying, she doesn't deny it immediately. She assesses whether denying it benefits her. That pause told me everything about her character. And the show doesn't let Jiang Shuiying off the hook morally. Some dramas want you to worship the rich powerful lead and excuse everything because she's misunderstood. Not here. You can empathize with her pressure and still think, girl, you cannot treat people like disposable chess pieces. Chen Keyuan calls her out in small ways, not with grand speeches, but with disappointed honesty. He'll say things like, "You didn't ask me." And her face will flicker, like the concept of asking is both unfamiliar and inconvenient. Those moments are gold because they are quiet, but they land. The social themes sneak in through the cracks, which I appreciate. Class is obvious, but it's not preached. It's shown through access. Jiang Shuiying can make a phone call and a problem disappears. Chen Keyuan has to physically run to solve problems, and sometimes even that doesn't work. Reputation works differently too. A rumor about Jiang Shuiying is a stock price issue. A rumor about Chen Keyuan is his whole life collapsing because he doesn't have a PR team. He has neighbors and co-workers who gossip like it's cardio. There's a particularly uncomfortable sequence where photos of him with Jiang Shuiying leak and suddenly his courier company treats him differently, like he's either a hero or a threat, and you can see how quickly society punishes people for moving out of their place. Now, I know some of you are waiting for me to talk about whether the romance is actually romantic, because fake dating plots can be either adorable or borderline coercive, and this one plays with that line on purpose. There are moments that feel sweet, like when Jiang Shuiying quietly covers for Chen Keyuan in front of executives who try to humiliate him, and you can tell she respects his backbone even if she'd never say it. But there are also moments that made me mutter, "This is messed up," like when she shows up unannounced and expects him to drop his life because her schedule needs him. The drama wants you to sit in that discomfort, and whether you enjoy that depends on your tolerance for morally grey leads. Black Widow's plotline also starts revealing its layers around the time the show expands beyond the initial document theft. You begin to realize she's not just chasing papers, she's chasing leverage, and she has history with someone in Qingyun's upper ranks. The show drops hints through glances and loaded pauses, the kind of thing where you're like, okay, you two definitely met before and it ended badly. There's a scene where Black Widow walks through a Qingyun event like she belongs there, and a senior executive nearly chokes on his drink when he sees her. That reaction isn't random. That's backstory screaming without words. And Chen Kuyuan, stuck between these two, starts changing in ways that are subtle but real. Early on, he's reactive. Midway, he becomes strategic. Not in a slick corporate way, but in a street-smart way. He starts keeping receipts, literally and figuratively. He starts remembering faces. He starts predicting patterns. There's this great moment where he pretends to be clueless in front of someone trying to manipulate him, and you can see in his eyes he's acting. He's learning to perform, which is both empowering and tragic because it means innocence is being burned off him like friction. One of my favorite directed scenes so far is a nighttime chase that happens after Chen Kuyuan realizes someone is trying to retrieve the documents through him. The lighting is harsh, street lamps flickering, reflections in puddles, and the camera stays close to his shoulder so you feel every turn like you're running too. The sound goes muffled at one point, like his adrenaline is drowning the world, and then you hear his breathing slam back into focus. It's not just action for action's sake, it's a physical manifestation of him being hunted. And the way the episode ends, with him pressed against a wall clutching his phone like it's the only lifeline he has left, I genuinely sat there thinking, my guy just wanted to deliver packages. I also need to shout out the small comedic beats. Because the show uses humor like a pressure valve. There's a scene where Chen Kuyuan is forced to attend a fancy dinner as Jiang Shuiying's boyfriend, and he doesn't know which fork to use, and you think it's going to be the typical, poor boy embarrassed, gag. But instead of humiliating him, the show lets him handle it with quiet dignity. He just watches, copies politely, and when someone tries to mock him, Jiang Shuiying shuts it down with a single sentence that's so sharp it might as well be a slap. It's satisfying, not mean-spirited. And then later, when they're alone, Chen Kuyuan deadpans something like, "Do rich people have a different stomach?" and Jiang Shuiying almost laughs before catching herself. Almost. That almost did more for their dynamic than a forced kiss would have. Speaking of kisses, the drama teases intimacy in a way that feels intentionally cruel to the audience. It gives you near moments, a hand hovering, a jacket placed over shoulders, a gaze held too long. But it keeps reminding you these two are trapped in something transactional. When tenderness happens, it's accidental, like their real selves bumping into each other before the masks snap back into place. And that makes it addictive, because you start craving the moment they can't retreat fast enough. Black Widow, of course, is not here for tenderness. She's here for conquest. There's a scene where she visits Chen Kuyuan at his workplace, and the way she stands among the stacks of packages and delivery trucks is such a visual metaphor. She's a luxury predator in a world of cardboard and tape. The employees stare. The manager acts nervous. Chen Kuyuan looks like he wants to crawl into a box and ship himself to another city. She says something playful that could be interpreted as romantic, but the undertone is, "I can reach you anywhere." And that's when you realize her obsession isn't just attraction. It's control addiction. One complaint I do have, and I'm saying this as someone who is clearly enjoying the mess, is that a couple of side antagonists feel underwritten early on. There's a rival company guy who shows up with the standard smirk and vague threats, and I wanted more specificity from him sooner. Like, don't just tell me he's ambitious, show me what he's willing to burn to win. The drama eventually starts doing that, but there's a stretch where he's basically a suit with dialogue, and compared to the electricity of the main trio, that's a dip. But whenever the show returns to Jiang Shuiying's internal world, it finds its edge again. There's a scene where she's alone in her office at night, city lights behind her like a digital ocean, and she finally drops the posture. Her shoulders sag. Her face empties. She looks exhausted in a way no board meeting can reveal. Then her phone buzzes with another crisis and the armor snaps back on instantly. That's the kind of acting detail that makes a character feel like a person instead of a trope. Chen Kuyuan's emotional scenes are quieter, but they sneak up on you. There's a moment where he calls his mom, and he can't tell her what's happening, so he lies in this gentle way, telling her work is busy, everything is fine. His voice is steady, but his eyes are tired. When he hangs up, he just sits there holding the phone for a second too long like it's the only normal thing he has left. No music swell, no dramatic tear. Just silence and a guy trying not to fall apart. That scene hit me harder than some of the bigger confrontations, because it's such a recognizable kind of loneliness. As the episodes stack up, the central question keeps getting louder. What does Chen Kuyuin actually want? Because at first, he wants out. Then he wants safety. Then he wants fairness. And somewhere along the way, you start seeing tiny hints that he also wants to be seen, to be valued, not as an asset or a toy, but as a human being. Jiang Shuiying occasionally looks at him like she's surprised he has a spine. Black Widow looks at him like she's surprised he has boundaries. Both reactions, in their own way, compliments in the worst possible language. The middle stretch of the drama starts threading in a mystery element about who inside Qingyun helped the thief and why the documents were so urgently targeted. We get scenes of encrypted drives, shredded files, a suspicious IT guy who is either guilty or too obvious, and a security chief who talks like he's loyal but watches like he's calculating. The show plays fair enough that you can form theories, yet it also throws distractions that make you second-guess yourself. A personal favorite misdirect is when the narrative points you toward a board member who seems corrupt, only to reveal he's actually covering for a family scandal rather than selling company secrets. Messy, human, selfish, but not the main villain. Those are the kinds of twists I respect because they expand the world instead of shrinking it into a single, bad guy. And right when Chen Kuyuin starts adapting to the corporate theater, Black Widow escalates in a way that feels like she's offended by his growth. Like she preferred him when he was purely reactive, easier to corner. There's a sequence where she engineers a situation that forces him to rely on her for a brief moment, and the show shoots it like a seduction and a hostage situation at the same time. Her voice is soft, her hands are gentle, but the context is all wrong. Chen Kuyuin's discomfort is palpable, and the actor does this incredible thing where he tries to keep his face neutral while his eyes are basically screaming, and the tension comes from that restraint. If he panics, he loses. If he plays along, he compromises himself. It's such a nasty emotional puzzle. Jiang Shuiying, meanwhile, starts showing something dangerously close to jealousy, but she frames it as risk management. She confronts Chen Kuyuin about his contact with Black Widow, and he snaps back, finally, with a frustration that's been simmering for episodes. He basically says, "You put me in this position and now you're blaming me for surviving it." And oh my god, the silence after that line. Jiang Shuiying doesn't apologize. She doesn't soften. Her eyes flicker like she's been slapped by truth, and she says something controlled, something like, "You agreed." And Chen Kuyuin replies, "You made it impossible to refuse." The writing there is brave because it doesn't pretend consent is simple when power is involved. The camera work during that argument is also worth mentioning because it avoids melodrama. No shaky cam, no dramatic zooms. It stays steady, like the show is forcing you to sit with the discomfort instead of distracting you with style. The lighting is cold, office light, unromantic. This is not a lover's quarrel. This is a negotiation between two people who are beginning to realize they affect each other in ways that aren't on the contract. And then, because this drama refuses to let anyone breathe, it layers in a public event where the fake relationship has to be performed at maximum volume. This is where the show becomes almost painfully fun, because you get the spectacle, flashy venue, elegant guests, whispered gossip swirling like smoke, while knowing there's rot underneath. Chen Kuyuin is dressed in a suit that fits him too well to feel like his own skin, and Jiang Shuiying looks flawless in a way that's almost intimidating. They walk in together, and for a second, you can believe the lie. That's the dangerous part of performance. Sometimes it starts to feel real if you hold the pose long enough. Black Widow shows up too, of course, because she's basically a chaos magnet in human form. And the way she inserts herself into their orbit at the event is so smooth it's infuriating. She doesn't cause a scene. She doesn't need to. She just positions herself where she can be seen, speaks to the right people, laughs at the right volume, and suddenly the social air shifts. Jiang Shuiying notices immediately, because she's trained to read rooms the way other people read text messages. Chen Kuyuin notices because his stomach drops like he just missed a step on a staircase. There's a moment at the event where Chen Kuyuin reaches for a drink just to have something to do with his hands, and Jiang Shuiying subtly stops him, not rudely, just a light touch on his wrist, and she murmurs something like, "Clear head." It's such a small gesture, but it lands because it's protective in a way she doesn't usually allow herself to be. And Chen Kuyuin looks at her, just briefly, like he's confused by the care. He's trying to figure out if it's real concern or strategic maintenance of her boyfriend. And that confusion becomes the emotional engine of the next few episodes, because once you start questioning motives, every kindness becomes suspicious and every harshness becomes maybe a mask. Then the plot twist at the end of that event episode hits, and I'm telling you, I actually said, "Oh come on," out loud because it was so perfectly timed to ruin your piece. A key piece of evidence about the document theft surfaces in a way that implicates someone close to Chen Kuyuin's everyday life, not just corporate people. Suddenly the danger isn't contained in Qingyun's glass tower anymore. It's in his neighborhood, his roots, his normal world. The show frames it with this wide shot of him standing outside under a streetlight, the city humming around him like nothing changed, while his face says everything changed. And the episode cuts with that low Black Widow synth creeping in, not even showing her face, just letting you feel her presence like a shadow moving across the pavement. And right after that, the drama starts setting up a sequence where Chen Kuyuin tries to take initiative for the first time, not just react to orders. He decides he's going to find out who's using him as a bridge between the stolen documents and Qingyun's internal mess. He starts revisiting the day of the incident in his mind, retracing steps, talking to people he wouldn't normally talk to. There's a scene where he goes back to the Qingyun lobby pretending he has a delivery, just to observe security patterns, and the tension is delicious because you know he could get caught in seconds. The way the director shoots it, with the lobby's glossy surfaces reflecting him like multiple versions of himself, makes it feel like he's splitting into a new person right in front of us. And the second Jiang Shuiying realizes he's acting independently, she doesn't react with gratitude. She reacts with control panic. She calls him into her office, shuts the door, and the air between them goes tight. She asks him what he's doing, and he doesn't fully answer. He tries to keep some agency. He tries to keep one corner of his life that isn't under her management. And you can see Jiang Shuiying struggling, because part of her respects it, but part of her is terrified of variables. She likes predictable pieces. Chen Kuyuin is becoming unpredictable. Meanwhile, Black Widow gets wind of his little investigation, and instead of stopping him, she fans it like a flame, because she loves watching people walk toward cliffs when she knows where the edge is. She meets him in a place that feels intentionally chosen to unnerve him, quiet, public enough that she can pretend it's harmless, but isolated enough that the conversation feels like a trap. She offers him information, but the price is proximity. Not money. Not favors. Just closeness, like she's trying to condition him to associate survival with her presence. And Chen Kuyuin, stuck in this impossible triangle, has to decide whether taking her help is a betrayal of his own values or a necessary evil. The actor's face work in this scene is insane, because you can watch the calculations moving behind his eyes while he keeps his voice calm. And that's where the drama starts getting really addictive for me, because it stops being only, which woman will he choose, and becomes, will this guy even make it out of this with his soul intact? And honestly, the show makes that question feel way too real. The last thing I want to mention before I keep going is how the director uses phones as little symbols of control. Every time Chen Kuyuin's phone rings now, it's not just a call, it's a leash tug. Jiang Shuiying's calls feel like orders wrapped in polite phrasing. Black Widow's messages feel like spider silk, light but sticky. Even his courier app notifications start feeling sinister because they are part of the system that keeps him moving on other people's schedules. So when Chen Kuyuin finally decides to stop answering immediately, when he lets a call ring out while he stares at the screen, breathing through the urge to comply, my heart actually started racing because that tiny act of disobedience feels like the first real rebellion. And right as he's standing there, letting the phone vibrate itself into silence, you hear footsteps behind him, not rushed, not loud, just measured, like someone who knows he can't run forever, and he turns his head and the camera holds just long enough for you to see his expression shift from determination to straight-up alarm as a familiar figure steps into the edge of the frame and says, in that calm voice that always means trouble, that she's been looking for him because there's something he doesn't understand about the documents, and if he keeps digging without her, he's going to get somebody killed. And Chen Kuyuin swallows hard because he realizes the person warning him isn't doing it out of kindness, they're doing it because they want to be the one holding the knife when the truth comes out, and the way the scene is lit makes her eyes look almost black as she takes one step closer and asks him if he's ready to hear what Qing-yun really stole from someone else years ago, because it wasn't just data, it was a life, and Chen Keyuan's voice cracks slightly when he asks whose life, and she tilts her head like she's savoring the moment before she answers, because she knows the name is going to change everything he thinks he knows about Jiang Shuiying and about himself and about why he was the one who happened to be in that hallway that day. And she doesn't even give him the courtesy of a clean answer right away. She lets the silence sit there like a wet coat on his shoulders. You can hear the ambient city noise behind them, a motorbike passing, a distant vendor calling out, and somehow that normal life sound makes the moment feel even more cruel, because Chen Keyuan is standing on the edge of something huge while the world keeps spinning like it's none of its business. Black Widow leans in just enough for him to smell that expensive perfume that has no right being this close to a courier uniform, and she says the name like it's a secret she's been tasting for years. And when that name lands, the camera doesn't cut to a dramatic reaction from 10 angles. It just stays on Chen Keyuan's face and lets you watch him try to process it in real time, like his brain is reaching for a shelf that wasn't supposed to exist. This is where the show reveals what it's actually been doing under the romance tug-of-war. The documents weren't only about patents or a business deal. They are tied to an old incident inside Qing-yun, something that was buried back when Jiang Shuiying was still climbing and didn't have the full crown yet. There was a whistleblower, a researcher, someone who raised concerns about an unethical project, and that person got erased the way corporations erase people, not with blood on the floor, but with contracts, NDAs, career sabotage, and a tragic accident narrative that's just neat enough to be fake. Black Widow's angle is that she didn't just appear to steal, she's been collecting pieces of this story for a long time, and Chen Keyuan accidentally stumbled into the one missing link that could force Qing-yun's vault open. And can we just talk about how the drama frames that reveal? Because a lesser show would slap a flashback on the screen, add a sepia filter, and call it a day. This one does something nastier and smarter. It gives you fragments. A lab hallway with fluorescent lights that hum like insects. A hand signing a document with trembling fingers. A security camera angle of someone being escorted out. A woman's voice saying, "You'll regret this," but you don't see her full face yet. The edits are quick, like memory shards, and you're not sure what's true until the present-day characters start colliding with the consequences. It makes you feel like you're investigating, not being spoon-fed. Chen Keyuan, bless his exhausted soul, doesn't react like a hero. He reacts like a guy whose life just got heavier. He asks Black Widow why she's telling him, and she gives him that half smile that always reads like she's amused by how human he is. She says she's telling him because he's already in it, whether he likes it or not, and because she wants Jiang Shuiying to watch something she built crack under pressure. That's the first time the show says out loud what we've all been sensing. Black Widow's interest in Chen Keyuan is real, but it's tangled up with her obsession with Jiang Shuiying. It's not just, I want the guy. It's, I want to win against the woman who thinks she can control everything. And you know what? That complexity makes her way more interesting than the usual, other woman, trope. Because she's not here to cry in the rain about unrequited love. She's here to set the rain on fire. The next episode picks up and immediately makes Chen Keyuan's situation worse, because of course it does. Now he has information he doesn't fully understand, and everyone around him is suddenly too attentive. Jiang Shuiying's assistant starts appearing, coincidentally, near his delivery routes. The Qing-yun security chief calls him with this polite voice that doesn't match the threat embedded in every syllable. Even his boss at the courier company gets a mysterious visit from someone in a suit who pretends it's about partnership opportunities, and you can feel the noose tightening around Chen Keyuan's everyday world. The drama is so good at showing intimidation without needing overt violence. It's the kind of intimidation that makes you question your own senses. Like, am I being watched, or am I paranoid? And that's exactly how control works in real life, which is why it hits. There's this one scene I couldn't stop thinking about where Chen Keyuan goes downstairs to take out the trash and notices a new CCTV camera angle on the building that wasn't there before. It's such a simple detail. No music sting, no big zoom. He just looks up, and the camera looks back down at him. And the show holds the shot long enough for you to feel that gross little chill in your spine. That's when Chen Kuyuin realizes he's not just trapped between two women emotionally. He's trapped inside a machine that now considers him a moving part. Now, Jiang Shuiying's arc in this stretch gets really juicy, because the show starts forcing her to face the limits of her control. She's used to threats she can negotiate with. She's used to rivals who want money or status. Black Widow is different because she doesn't want a seat at the table. She wants to flip the table and watch people crawl. And Jiang Shuiying can't simply buy her out of the way. There's a scene where Jiang Shuiying tries to meet Black Widow privately, thinking she can handle it with her usual ice and authority approach, and Black Widow basically laughs in her face without laughing. That little exhale she does, that slow blink, that, oh sweetheart, energy, it's humiliating in the most elegant way. The acting in that confrontation is insane, by the way. Jiang Shuiying's actress plays her anger like something she refuses to own. Her jaw tightens, her voice stays level, and you can see her nails dig into her palm just out of frame. Black Widow's actress, on the other hand, plays it like she's lounging even when she's standing. She moves slowly, like she's the one who has time, and time is power. Their chemistry isn't romantic, it's combative, and it crackles. It's like watching two different kinds of predators assess each other, one trained by boardrooms, one trained by survival. And Chen Kuyuin is stuck being the reason they're in the same room, which the show uses to torture him. Because every time they clash, he's treated like an object in the argument. Jiang Shuiying talks about him as a risk. Black Widow talks about him as mine. And he's just standing there like, hello, I have ears. I exist? There's a moment where he finally snaps and says something like, stop talking about me like I'm not here. And both women pause, genuinely surprised, like they forgot that the courier is also a person with a mouth. That pause is so telling. It's funny for half a second, and then it's depressing, because it reveals how power makes people dehumanize without even noticing they're doing it. The drama's dialogue stays sharp here, and it starts giving Chen Kuyuin more of a voice. Early episodes had him mostly reacting. Now he gets lines that cut. Not in a cool alpha male way, but in a tired man reaching his limit way. He asks Jiang Shuiying why she never asked him what he wanted. He asks Black Widow why she keeps saying she likes him while making his life dangerous. And neither woman has a clean answer, because the truth would make them look bad. Jiang Shuiying thinks wanting is a luxury. Black Widow thinks wanting is taking. Chen Kuyuin is the only one who still believes wanting should involve consent, and the fact that he's surrounded by people who don't live by that rule is basically the tragedy engine of the show. Let me tell you, the directing choices in these scenes are doing so much. When Jiang Shuiying and Chen Kuyuin argue, the camera often places objects between them, the edge of a desk, a glass wall, a car console, a phone on speaker. There's always a barrier. Even when they are physically close, there's something separating them. With Black Widow and Chen Kuyuin, it's the opposite. The camera invades space. Close-ups linger too long. Their frames feel tight, like the air is thick. It visually communicates the difference between Jiang Shuiying's controlled distance and Black Widow's invasive intimacy. Now we get into the part where the plot starts layering twists like it's building a stress sandwich. The internal Qingyun investigation into the document theft reveals that the thief Chen Kuyuin caught wasn't the mastermind. Shocker. The thief was a runner. A disposable pawn. The show hints that the real leak is higher up, someone with access and a reason to want Jiang Shuiying destabilized. And because this is a drama that loves messy consequences, suspicion starts falling on people Jiang Shuiying has trusted for years. That's when her character really becomes interesting, because you watch her paranoia collide with her pride. She doesn't want to admit she misjudged anyone. She doesn't want to believe loyalty can be bought. Yet evidence keeps creeping in, and her world starts to look less like a fortress and more like a glass box. There's a scene where she's in a board meeting and one of the older executives makes a pointed comment about personal distractions, clearly referencing the fake boyfriend situation. Jiang Shuiying's smile doesn't change, but her eyes go colder. She responds with something impeccably polite that basically tells him to mind his business. And on the surface, she wins the exchange. But then the camera cuts to another executive watching quietly, and you realize the comment wasn't about morality. It was about weakness. They are testing her. They are using Chen Kuyuin as a way to poke her armor and see if it dents. And I love that the show lets us see the political undercurrent instead of pretending the board is just a group of extras in suits. Meanwhile, Chen Kuyuin's personal life starts fraying. His co-workers at the courier company start treating him differently. Some are impressed, some are jealous, some are suspicious. There's this one co-worker, a guy who used to be friendly, who starts making little digs like, "So, when are you buying the company?" And it's played half as a joke, but you can tell there's resentment. And honestly, I appreciated that detail because it shows how quickly social dynamics shift when someone appears to rise. People either want a piece of you or they want to drag you back down to where they think you belong. One of the most emotionally brutal scenes in this stretch is when Chen Kuyuin's neighbor auntie, the one who used to feed him, hears rumors about him being involved in corporate scandal and possibly being kept by a rich woman. She confronts him, not maliciously, but with that disappointed worry older people sometimes carry like a weapon. Chen Kuyuin tries to explain without explaining, and she doesn't fully believe him. She says something about how money changes people, and you can see him realize he's losing the simple trust of the people who knew him before any of this. That scene is shot in warm lighting, his apartment doorway like a little safe zone, and yet the conversation poisons it. It's such a clever way to show that the danger isn't only physical. It's social. It's reputational. It's isolation. And here's where the fake dating trope flips on its head a bit, because now Jiang Shuiying's relationship with Chen Kuyuin isn't only protecting her. It's putting him in a spotlight that burns. She starts noticing the damage, and you can tell she's conflicted. There's a moment where she sees an online comment thread dragging Chen Kuyuin, calling him names, accusing him of being a gold digger. She stares at the screen longer than she should. Then she quietly orders her PR team to bury the narrative. Not for her image, but for his. And that's the first time you see her use her power in a way that feels protective instead of exploitative. But of course, even protection comes with control. Because when she tells him she handled it, she expects gratitude. Chen Kuyuin isn't grateful. He's angry that she had to handle it in the first place because she created the situation. And that argument is so real. It's the classic dynamic of someone powerful saying, "Look what I did for you," and the less powerful person saying, "I didn't want to need you." The show doesn't resolve it neatly. It lets it fester, which is good writing even if it's uncomfortable to watch. Black Widow, meanwhile, escalates her psychological games. She starts sending Chen Kuyuin little gifts that aren't gifts. A document photocopy slid into his delivery bag. A burner phone hidden in his scooter compartment. A message that references something he did when he was 12, just to prove she's been digging into him. And yes, it's creepy. It's meant to be creepy. The show is basically saying, this is what obsession looks like when it has resources and no conscience. And the actor playing Chen Kuyuin portrays the creeping dread so well. He starts checking locks twice. He jumps at small sounds. He scans crowds. He's becoming someone who can't relax. Now, if you're wondering whether the show ever lets Chen Kuyuin feel like he has any agency at all, it does, but it makes him earn it. There's a turning point episode where he decides he's not going to be bait anymore. He goes to Jiang Shuiying and proposes a deal of his own. And this scene is so satisfying because the power dynamic shifts by inches. He's still in her office, still in her world, but his posture is different. He's not hunched. He's not apologizing for existing. He says he'll continue the fake relationship publicly, but he wants boundaries, and he wants transparency about the document situation. Jiang Shuiying looks at him like he just spoke a language she didn't expect him to know. And the writing smartly avoids making her immediately agree like a softened romantic lead. She pushes back. She says he doesn't understand the stakes. He says he understands enough to know he's being used. There's a long pause where you can see her calculating, but also feeling something she doesn't like feeling, respect. She finally agrees to a partial truth. Not full. Partial. That compromise tells you she's changing, but she's not transformed. She's still Jiang Shuiying. Growth doesn't happen like flipping a switch. The partial truth she shares is that the stolen documents relate to a project Qingyun buried, and that project connects to someone's death. She doesn't say she caused it. She doesn't say she benefited. But she doesn't deny that Qingyun as a machine did something unforgivable. And then she says something that hit me hard, because it's one of the rare moments where her mask cracks emotionally. She tells him that in her world, you either become the person who makes the call, or you become the person the call is made about. And Chen Kuyuin just stares at her like, that's not a world. That's a prison. It's such a good thematic clash, her acceptance of ruthless systems versus his refusal to normalize them. The show also starts using symbolism more overtly here, and I'm usually allergic to heavy-handed symbolism, but this drama keeps it tasteful. The recurring motif of documents and paper becomes a metaphor for truth being fragile and easily stolen. There's also a recurring image of delivery packages. Chen Kuyuin's whole job is transporting items he doesn't own, delivering them to people who do. That becomes a metaphor for how he's been carrying other people's secrets, other people's wars, without consent. At one point, he's holding a sealed envelope and he hesitates before delivering it, like he's suddenly aware that every object he moves could be a weapon. It's subtle, but it lands. Cinematography-wise, the show starts playing with depth of field in a really cool way. When Chen Kuyuin is overwhelmed, the background blurs aggressively, making the world look like a smear of lights and shapes. When he's focused and investigating, the frame sharpens, details pop, the show invites you to look closely with him. It's such a smart visual trick because it ties his mental state to the viewer's experience without needing voiceover. Now let's get into one of the most controversial arcs, the moment when the fake dating starts bleeding into real feelings, and everyone involved handles it terribly. Because yes, there is a stretch where Jiang Shuiying and Chen Kuyuin share a few scenes that feel genuinely intimate, and the show makes you want to root for them, and then it immediately reminds you that the foundation of their relationship is coercion and strategy. It's like the drama is dangling candy and then slapping your hand away. There's a scene where Chen Kuyuin gets injured during an incident involving people trying to snatch evidence from him. It's not some glamorous injury. He's not shot in slow motion. He falls hard, scrapes up, and his hand is bleeding. Jiang Shuiying rushes to him in a way that's almost primal, and for once she doesn't care who's watching. She grabs his hand, presses a cloth to it, and her voice trembles just slightly when she tells him to stay still. The actress plays this panic so well because it's not hysterical, it's controlled panic, the kind where someone is trying not to let fear show because fear is weakness, but it leaks anyway. And Chen Kuyuin looks up at her, a little dazed, and he says something soft like, "Do you even know me?" And she freezes. Because that question is the whole problem. She knows his schedule. She knows his address. She knows his file. But does she know him? The show lets that question hang like smoke. Black Widow sees the moment too, of course, because she's always watching. And her reaction is chilling because she doesn't rage. She doesn't storm off. She smiles like she just confirmed a hypothesis. Like, so she does care. And you can tell that makes Black Widow more determined, because now it's not only about control. It's about hurting Jiang Shuiying where it actually hurts. One thing I appreciated is that the drama doesn't pretend Black Widow is invincible. She has vulnerabilities, and the show slowly reveals them without turning her into a sob story. You learn she has a personal connection to the buried Qingyun incident. Someone she loved, or someone who saved her, or someone whose life was destroyed by the corporation's choices. The show doesn't dump this exposition in a monologue. It reveals it through little tells, the way her eyes change when she hears a specific name, the way she tightens her grip on a glass when someone mentions the old project, the way she briefly looks away like she's swallowing something bitter. These are acting choices that make her more human, which ironically makes her scarier, because it means her revenge has real fuel. There's a mid-season episode that's basically a masterclass in tension, where Chen Kuyuin is forced to attend a Qingyun charity gala as Jiang Shuiying's boyfriend while secretly carrying a flash drive with evidence. Black Widow is there, playing donor. The suspected internal traitor is there, smiling too much. The security chief is there, eyes scanning. And Chen Kuyuin, who has no business being in this environment, is trying to act normal while his whole body is screaming. The editing in this episode is so tight. It keeps cutting between faces, hands, pockets, glances. A waiter passes and the tray clinks, and it sounds like a gun cocking. The soundtrack pulls back, letting room noise take over, which makes everything feel exposed. There's also this brilliant little moment where Chen Kuyuin goes to the restroom to hide and breathe, and the show frames him in the mirror with Jiang Shuiying's tie clip visible on his shirt, like a symbol of how he's wearing pieces of her world. He splashes water on his face, looks up, and for a second he looks like he doesn't recognize himself. That's such a simple image, but it hits because that's what happens when you get dragged into someone else's war. You start losing the outline of who you were before. The gala episode ends with a twist that I genuinely didn't see coming. The flash drive Chen Kuyuin thought was the evidence turns out to be a decoy. Someone swapped it. And the show makes this reveal so cruelly effective because Chen Kuyuin only realizes after he's already taken risks to protect it. He has this moment of horror where he's holding the wrong object and the camera pushes in slightly, not too dramatic, just enough. He looks like he wants to scream, but he can't. He's in a room full of powerful people. He has to swallow it. And that swallow becomes the emotional punctuation mark of the episode. That twist also reframes the intelligence of the antagonists. It tells you Chen Kuyuin is not the only one adapting. The people hunting the truth are watching him just as closely. And that makes the cat and mouse game feel legitimate. Nobody's safe because nobody's dumb. Now, let's talk about the supporting cast again because this is the part of the drama where side characters stop being decoration and start becoming knives. Jiang Shuiying's assistant, for example, starts showing signs of divided loyalty. Not because she's secretly evil, but because she's tired. She's been holding Jiang Shuiying's world together with tape and spreadsheets, and now the world is cracking anyway. There's a scene where she tells Jiang Shuiying that Chen Kuyuin is becoming a liability, and Jiang Shuiying says she can handle it. The assistant's face does this tiny shift, like she's thinking, you can't handle feelings. And the tension there is subtle but real, because you realize the assistant might eventually choose the company over Jiang Shuiying personally. Then there's the Qingyun security chief, who becomes a fascinating character because he operates like a man who believes order is morality. He doesn't see himself as corrupt, he sees himself as necessary. When he interrogates Chen Kuyuin, he's polite, almost gentle, but he asks questions like his peeling skin. The actor playing him has this calm voice that never rises, and it's honestly more terrifying than shouting. He's the kind of villain who can ruin you without ever getting his suit dirty. And the courier company boss, who starts as a harmless grumbly manager, gets pulled into the plot in a way that's so sad because he's clearly out of his depth. Qingyun offers him incentives, pressures him, suggests audits, and you can see him shrinking under power. He's not evil. He's just scared. That's another theme the drama hits well. Most people don't become complicit because they are monsters. They become complicit because they have bills, families, fear, and a desperate desire to stay invisible. Now, one of the biggest emotional beats in this stretch is when Chen Kuyuin tries to quit the fake relationship for real. Not as a bargaining move. As a final act. He goes to Jiang Shuiying and says he can't do it anymore. He says he's losing himself, he's endangering people around him, he's tired of being pulled like a rope in a tug-of-war. Jiang Shuiying listens, expression unreadable. For a second, you think she's going to let him go, because the show has been building her growth. And then she says something that made me go cold, because it reminds you who she is when threatened. She tells him if he leaves now, the narrative will turn on him. The media will paint him as a scammer who tried to climb and got kicked out. Her enemies will target him harder because he'll look like a loose end. She says staying is safer. And that is such a toxic, realistic manipulation because it's not a lie. It might actually be true. And that's what makes it brutal, she's using reality as a cage. Chen Kuyuin looks devastated because he realizes the exit isn't an exit. It's just another trapdoor into a deeper pit. And then, unexpectedly, Jiang Shuiying does something different. She adds, quietly, that she doesn't want him to leave. Not because she needs him strategically, but because she pauses. And that pause is everything. The actress plays it like Jiang Shuiying is choking on a word she's never practiced saying. The show doesn't force her to confess love. It lets her almost confess something softer, something scarier for her, attachment. And Chen Keyuan hears it. You can see it hit him. But he doesn't melt. He doesn't suddenly forgive. He just looks tired, and he says, wanting doesn't fix what you did. And I wanted to stand up and clap because finally, the drama lets the male lead keep his dignity even in an emotional scene. Black Widow, of course, senses the shift between them and decides to poison it. She leaks something. Not just a rumor, but a carefully curated piece of information about Chen Keyuan's past, twisted to make him look opportunistic. The online backlash becomes ugly. People dig into his family. They show up at his workplace. Someone throws something at him while he's delivering. And the show doesn't glamorize this. It's filmed with handheld shakiness, crowd noise, the feeling of being swarmed. Chen Keyuan tries to keep moving because couriers are trained to keep moving, but you can see fear creeping into his posture. He's being punished for proximity to power, and that's such a real phenomenon it hurts to watch. This is also where the soundtrack gets more minimal. The show uses less music during these public harassment scenes, which makes them feel raw. You hear insults clearly. You hear Chen Keyuan's breath. You hear the squeak of his scooter brakes. It's uncomfortable, and it should be. One of the most memorable lines in the entire drama comes during this stretch when Chen Keyuan finally confronts Black Widow directly, not scared, just furious. He tells her that if she actually likes him, she should stop treating him like a weapon. And she responds with something like, weapons don't get to complain about being used. And then she steps closer and says, almost gently, but you're not a weapon, are you? You're the hand that chooses. That line is so manipulative and so revealing at the same time. It shows how she frames morality, choice is everything, context is irrelevant. She's basically daring him to become ruthless. It's like she wants to corrupt him as proof that everyone is like her underneath, because if Chen Keyuan stays decent, it invalidates her worldview. That's why her obsession with him feels deeper than lust. He's a moral challenge to her. And she wants to win. The show's pacing here is relentless, but it's not random. Each episode escalates a different axis of pressure, public pressure, corporate pressure, emotional pressure, physical pressure. It keeps changing the kind of tension so you don't get numb. One episode is boardroom chess. The next is street-level stalking. The next is a quiet emotional breakup that isn't really a breakup because nothing is real and everything is real at the same time. It's exhausting in a way that matches Chen Keyuan's exhaustion, which sounds like a complaint, but it's actually effective storytelling because you're supposed to feel trapped with him. Now, let's talk about romance satisfaction, because I know that's the thing people argue about in comments like it's a sport. If you're watching this drama expecting clear romantic payoff early, you're going to suffer. The show is intentionally stingy. It gives you emotional intimacy before physical intimacy. And when it finally gives a physical moment, it's not a celebratory kiss under fireworks. It's messy. It's charged with anger and fear and adrenaline. There's a scene after Chen Keyuan narrowly escapes an attempted abduction, yes, attempted abduction, because Black Widow's world is that dark, where he ends up in Jiang Shuiying's car. He's shaking, trying to play it off, and she's driving like she's trying to outrun the concept of losing him. They stop somewhere quiet, and for a minute they just sit there. No music. Just the engine ticking. Jiang Shuiying reaches toward him, stops, pulls back, then finally touches his shoulder lightly like she's afraid he'll shatter. Chen Keyuan flinches at first, then he doesn't. He closes his eyes for a second, and that tiny gesture feels more intimate than a kiss. Because it's trust, and trust is the hardest currency in this story. And then Jiang Shuiying whispers something that surprised me because it's so plain. She says she's sorry. Just that. No excuses. No, I had no choice. No, you don't understand. Just sorry. And Chen Keyuan opens his eyes and looks at her like he doesn't know what to do with an apology from someone like her. He doesn't accept it immediately. He doesn't reject it either. He just nods once, like he's acknowledging the moment exists. The show lets it be small, which makes it feel real. Black Widow finds out about that apology, and she reacts in a way that shows her biggest weakness: she can't stand sincerity. She can handle violence, deception, threats. But an honest apology? That's something she can't control because it doesn't operate by her rules. So she tries to ruin it by forcing Jiang Shuiying into a position where she has to choose strategy over Chen Keyuan again. And yes, it works, because that's the tragedy. Growth doesn't erase old habits under pressure. The setup for that is brilliant. Black Widow orchestrates a scenario where evidence about the old Qingyun incident is about to go public, and the only way to stop it is to sacrifice Chen Keyuan's reputation completely. Jiang Shuiying is given an option by her PR and legal teams: throw him under the bus, frame him as the leak source, save the company for now. Or protect him and risk Qingyun collapsing, employees losing jobs, her father's legacy being destroyed, her own position being obliterated. It's not a simple moral choice because the show makes the consequences heavy. Thousands of workers, pension funds, investors. It's the classic one person versus many dilemma, but framed through corporate realism. And Jiang Shuiying, being Jiang Shuiying, hesitates. That hesitation is the heartbreak. Because Chen Keyuan isn't in the room when she hesitates. He doesn't see the conflict. He only feels the outcome later. That's another theme the drama nails: the person with power gets to think. The person without power just gets impacted. When Chen Keyuan hears rumors that Qingyun might scapegoat him, he confronts Jiang Shuiying. She denies it too quickly. He sees through it. The argument that follows is one of the best acted scenes in the drama so far because neither character is fully wrong. Chen Keyuan says he trusted her apology, he thought she was changing. Jiang Shuiying says he doesn't understand what it means to hold a company together, what it means to be responsible for thousands of lives. Chen Keyuan fires back that she's using other people's lives to justify ruining one. And then he says something that genuinely stung: he tells her that she doesn't know how to love without owning. Jiang Shuiying's face goes still, like she's been struck in a place she didn't know existed. The director makes a bold choice in that scene to keep the camera slightly behind Chen Keyuan's shoulder when he delivers that line, so you're half in his perspective. You're watching Jiang Shuiying react like you're the one accusing her. It pulls you into the confrontation emotionally, and I respect that because it's not passive viewing. It makes you feel responsible for the tension. Also, can we please appreciate the set design in Jiang Shuiying's office? It's so sterile it's basically emotional suppression in furniture form. Clean surfaces, minimal decoration, everything in perfect alignment. But as her world unravels, the office starts looking less powerful and more lonely. There's this shot where she's standing alone in the huge room, city lights outside, and she looks small for the first time. Not physically small, but spiritually. Like the room is swallowing her. That's such a good visual metaphor for how power isolates. Now, one of the bolder narrative swings the show takes around this time is giving Chen Keyuan a chance to meet someone connected to the buried incident, a survivor or a family member of the whistleblower. This is where the drama shifts into moral thriller territory, and it works because it grounds the corporate plot in human cost. Chen Keyuan meets this person in a modest place, not a flashy set, and the conversation is quiet but devastating. The person talks about losing someone. About being told to stay quiet, about watching the company that destroyed their life become a symbol of success. Chen Keyuan listens, and you can see anger building in him not as revenge, but as moral clarity. That scene also changes Chen Keyuan's relationship to Jiang Shuiying, because now his anger isn't just personal. It's ethical. He's not only mad she used him. He's mad she's part of a machine that crushed people. And that's when the show becomes more than a love triangle. It becomes a story about whether someone can love a person who represents a system they hate. And whether that person can separate themselves from that system enough to be worthy of love. Heavy stuff for a drama that starts with "Courier catches a thief," right? Black Widow's role in this moral turn becomes even more complicated. Because yes, she's manipulative and dangerous, but she's also the one pushing the truth toward daylight. The show never lets you fully hate her because she's often pointing at real injustice. The problem is her methods. She doesn't want justice as healing. She wants justice as harm. She wants to make people suffer the way she suffered. And Chen Kuyuin, again, becomes the moral center because he wants accountability without becoming a monster. That's such a hard line to walk, and the show actually explores it instead of just preaching it. There's an episode where Chen Kuyuin is tempted to leak information publicly in a way that would blow up Qingyun instantly. Black Widow offers him a direct pipeline to do it. Jiang Shuiying begs him not to, promising she'll handle it internally, promising reforms, promising whatever she thinks will work. Chen Kuyuin is caught in the middle, and the episode frames his indecision as torture. The editing shows him staring at his phone, then cutting to workers leaving Qingyun at night, then cutting to the survivor's face, then cutting to Jiang Shuiying alone, then cutting to Black Widow smiling in a shadowy car. It's like the show is stacking moral weights on his chest. And Chen Kuyuin makes a choice that I didn't expect but really respected. He doesn't leak it the way Black Widow wants. He doesn't bury it the way Jiang Shuiying wants. He chooses a third path. He goes to a journalist, but on his terms, with evidence packaged in a way that protects certain innocents while exposing key decision makers. It's risky. It's not clean. It's still going to cause chaos. But it's him taking agency. It's him refusing to be someone else's instrument. And when Black Widow learns he didn't follow her plan, her reaction is the first time we see genuine anger crack her composure. Not theatrical rage, but cold fury. Her eyes harden, and she says something like, "You disappoint me." And Chen Kuyuin responds, quietly, "Good." That good was such a satisfying little punch because it's the moment he stops caring about pleasing the predators. The fallout from that choice is immediate. Qingyun goes into crisis mode. Jiang Shuiying is slammed by the board. There are emergency meetings, lawyers, PR strategies, stock price plummets. The drama does a great job portraying corporate panic not as people yelling, but as people making decisions fast with dead eyes. Jiang Shuiying's assistant becomes a key player here, running around with folders, whispering in corners, trying to patch leaks. The soundtrack becomes more percussive, like a heartbeat. The lighting in Qingyun turns harsher, more fluorescent, less glamorous, as if the building itself is losing its polish under stress. Jiang Shuiying's acting shines during these crisis episodes because she's forced to show vulnerability and steal simultaneously. There's a scene where she's in a bathroom stall, alone, finally allowing herself to breathe like a human, and then she hears voices outside and instantly composes herself. The mask slides back on. That moment is so relatable in a weird way, because who hasn't had to break down in private and then walk back out like everything's fine? The difference is her stakes are national news level. Chen Kuyuin becomes a target from all sides now. The board wants him silenced. Black Widow wants him controlled. Jiang Shuiying wants him protected but also wants him to stop. And the poor man just wants to exist. There's a scene where he tries to do a normal delivery again, like he's trying to reclaim his identity, and he can't. The customer recognizes him and shuts the door. Another customer films him. A kid points at him. He's become a symbol, and symbols don't get to be people. This is where the show's title, Do a Wanita Satu Kurir, starts feeling less like a playful hook and more like a curse. Two women, one courier. Two power forces using one man as a battleground. But also, two visions of the world fighting over a person who represents ordinary decency. It's not subtle, but it's effective. I also want to highlight how the show uses vehicles as visual language. Chen Kuyuin's scooter is his freedom and his vulnerability. Jiang Shuiying's car is her control, her ability to move without being touched by the street. Black Widow's vehicles, often dark and tinted, feel like mobile lairs. Whenever Chen Kuyuin is on foot, he's exposed. Whenever he's in Jiang Shuiying's car, he's protected but trapped. Whenever he's near Black Widow's car, it feels like he's at the edge of being swallowed. These choices aren't random. The director clearly thought about how movement equals power. Now, the romance triangle becomes more emotionally sophisticated in this crisis phase because it's less about flirtation and more about loyalty. Jiang Shuiying, under attack, realizes she can't just order Chen Kuyuin around anymore because he's not cooperating like before. Black Widow, seeing Chen Kuyuin assert agency, becomes more fixated, not less. And Chen Kuyuin himself starts seeing both women more clearly, without the initial intimidation. He sees Jiang Shuiying's humanity under the armor. He sees Black Widow's pain under the glamour. And he also sees their selfishness. That clarity is a form of growth, but it's painful growth, because seeing clearly often kills illusions you needed to survive. There's a devastating scene where Chen Kuyuin tells Jiang Shuiying he doesn't know if he can ever trust her. She asks him what she can do. And he says, "Stop deciding for me." And she's silent, because she doesn't know how. That's not even a joke. She literally doesn't know how to exist without managing outcomes. The actress plays that silence with this tiny tremor in her breath, and you can tell Jiang Shuiying is terrified. Not of losing him romantically, but of being confronted with a version of herself that might be fundamentally flawed. Black Widow gets her own mirror moment too. There's a scene where she's alone, removing jewelry in front of a mirror, and the show does this slow, almost uncomfortable shot of her face without her usual performance. No smile. No teasing eyes. Just emptiness for a second. And then she hears a notification and the mask returns. That tells you she's also trapped in a persona. She's built herself into this seductive villain because it gives her power. Without it, she has to face whatever grief is underneath. And she'd rather burn the world than feel that. The show's editing continues to be a highlight, especially in how it crosscuts emotional beats with plot beats. Like, Chen Kuyuin and Jiang Shuiying will have a quiet conversation where she tries to be honest, and then it cuts to a board member plotting her removal. Or Chen Kuyuin will be talking to the survivor about justice, and then it cuts to Black Widow loading a gun metaphorically, like preparing a new scheme. The juxtaposition keeps reminding you that personal feelings are constantly being interrupted by systems and agendas. Nobody gets to just love in peace here. Now, I know some people might complain that Chen Kuyuin is being pulled too much, that he's too passive for too long. I get that frustration. But I think the drama is intentionally portraying what it's like to be the small person caught in big people's wars. Agency doesn't appear instantly. It's built, and sometimes it's built through suffering, which is unfair but realistic. When he finally starts making moves, they feel earned. When he finally says no and means it, you feel it. And that's good character writing. One of the wildest plot turns in this stretch is when evidence emerges that Jiang Shuiying's father, or a father figure founder of Qingyun, might have been directly involved in the buried incident. That revelation is like dropping a bomb into her personal identity, because she's been justifying so much in the name of legacy. If the legacy is rotten, what does that make her? The drama doesn't rush her reaction. It gives her a full episode of denial, anger, numbness. She lashes out at her assistant, then apologizes awkwardly. She snaps at Chen Kuyuin, then immediately looks like she regrets it. She stares at an old family photo like it might rewrite itself if she looks hard enough. It's messy, and it's compelling, because it feels like someone grieving the version of their past they trusted. Chen Kuyuin, watching her unravel, experiences this complicated empathy. He doesn't suddenly excuse everything she did. But he understands what it feels like to have your world rewritten by information you can't unlearn. There's a scene where he finds her sitting in her office in the dark, no lights on, just the city glow. And instead of confronting her, he simply sits at a distance. No words. Just presence. That choice is so emotionally mature it made me want to shake him and also hug him, because he keeps showing kindness even when he's been treated badly. Black Widow sees this tenderness and decides it's time to cut deeper. She drops the most vicious move yet. She offers Chen Kuyuin a way to destroy Jiang Shuiying completely, not by exposing Qingyun, but by exposing Jiang Shuiying's personal involvement in a specific decision years ago. A signature. A meeting attendance. Something that would make the public believe Jiang Shuiying personally ruined the whistleblower's life. And the terrifying part is, the show leaves it ambiguous for a while whether Jiang Shuiying truly did it knowingly or whether she was manipulated as a younger executive. That ambiguity is smart because it forces the audience to wrestle with responsibility. How guilty is someone who participated in a machine without seeing the whole machine? Does ignorance excuse harm? The drama doesn't give easy answers. It just puts the question in your lap and dares you to hold it. Chen Kuyuin refuses Black Widow's offer, but his refusal isn't heroic posturing. It's exhausted morality. He tells her he won't be her executioner. She laughs softly and says he already is, because his choices have consequences no matter what. And then she says something that stuck with me. She tells him that pretending to be good doesn't make you clean. And Chen Kuyuin replies that trying to be clean is still better than enjoying being dirty. That exchange sums up their ideological clash perfectly, and it's delivered with such calm intensity that it feels like a knife fight with words. At the same time, Jiang Shuiying's board starts moving to remove her. They use the scandal as leverage, they call for votes, they leak stories. The corporate politics becomes a survival thriller. Jiang Shuiying tries to outmaneuver them, but she's outnumbered. And this is where the drama gets really fun if you like tactical plots, because Jiang Shuiying finally starts using her intelligence in a way that isn't just controlling Chen Kuyuin. She starts playing chess against the board. She sets traps, uses allies, exposes a rival's hidden corruption. There's a scene where she walks into a meeting with a calm smile and drops a file on the table that destroys someone's argument. The editing is crisp, the music hits just enough, and you get that, oh she's good, satisfaction. But the show doesn't let her be a girl boss fantasy either. Every win costs her. Every move isolates her further. You can see the toll. Her makeup becomes slightly less perfect in some scenes, her hair less rigid, like the facade is cracking. The costume design shifts too, subtly. She starts wearing darker, heavier fabrics, less airy, more burdened. Again, not accidental. The show is speaking through wardrobe. Chen Kuyuin gets dragged into the board drama when one faction tries to use him publicly to discredit Jiang Shuiying. They offer him money, safety, a clean exit, if he says certain things on camera. And the drama makes this temptation feel real, because who wouldn't want out? Who wouldn't want to protect their family? Chen Kuyuin hesitates. He considers it. And that's important because it shows he's not a saint. He's a person. But in the end, he refuses, because he realizes that taking the deal would make him complicit in another lie. He's done being a delivery man for other people's narratives. The scene where he refuses is shot in a small restaurant, plastic chairs, clinking dishes, normal life. The corporate suit across from him looks ridiculous in that environment, like a predator trying to blend in among pigeons. The suit slides an envelope across the table. Chen Kuyuin doesn't touch it. He just stands up and leaves. No dramatic speech. Just a quiet no, and that quiet no feels powerful because it's so grounded. It's not heroism for applause. It's integrity for survival. Black Widow responds to losing control of Chen Kuyuin by escalating into more direct danger. There's an attempted kidnapping sequence that is filmed like a horror scene. Nighttime, narrow alley, footsteps behind him, a hand reaching. The sound design is brutal here. You hear his shoe scuff, you hear someone's breath too close, you hear the faint buzz of streetlights. He fights back clumsily, not like a trained fighter, and that makes it scarier. He's not action hero capable. He's just desperate. And when he escapes by sheer luck and street smarts, you feel relief like you escaped too. After that, there's a scene where Chen Kuyuin finally breaks down emotionally. Not in a pretty way. He sits on his apartment floor, back against the wall, and he laughs once, like a broken little laugh, and then it turns into tears he tries to stop. He wipes his face angrily like he's mad at his own body for reacting. This is the kind of scene that depends entirely on acting, and the actor nails it. It's not a single perfect tear sliding down a cheek. It's messy. His nose gets red. His eyes look swollen. He looks like a person at the end of his rope. And the director doesn't cut away quickly. It lets you sit with him, which is uncomfortable, but it should be. Jiang Shuiying finds him like that later, and the way she reacts is one of the most important moments in her arc. She doesn't lecture him. She doesn't tell him to be strong. She doesn't make it about her guilt. She simply sits on the floor too. And she stays quiet. That's huge for her, because her instinct is to control with words and plans. Silence is vulnerability. She offers him a tissue like she doesn't know what else to do. He takes it, still not looking at her. And then she says something so small it broke me a little. She says, "I don't know how to fix this." Not, "I will fix this." Not, "Trust me." Just, "I don't know." That's the first time she admits she's not omnipotent. And admitting that is the start of becoming human. Black Widow, watching the two of them draw closer emotionally, does what villains like her do when they feel replaced. She goes for the jugular. She targets someone Chen Kuyuin loves, not necessarily physically, but with threat. The show hints she might have approached his mother, or at least found her information. Chen Kuyuin receives a message that includes a photo that proves Black Widow has been near his family. And the panic that hits him is immediate and primal. He runs. He doesn't think. He just runs. The scene is filmed with shaky urgency, his feet pounding stairs, his breath ragged. This is one of those moments where the drama's emotional stakes become visceral. It's not corporate anymore. It's personal survival. Jiang Shuiying, to her credit, reacts decisively here. She uses her resources not to stage a PR event, but to protect Chen Kuyuin's family. She sends security, she relocates them, she sets up safe housing. And yes, it's still control, but it's control used for protection, not leverage. Chen Kuyuin is furious that it came to this, but he can't deny the help. That dynamic, needing the person you resent, is so painful and so real, and the drama milks it without making it melodramatic. One thing that's been really impressive is how the show keeps the romance tension alive while the plot is basically a thriller now. It does it through looks, through timing, through small gestures. Like, Jiang Shuiying will adjust Chen Kuyuin's collar before a public appearance, and her fingers linger for half a second too long. Or Chen Kuyuin will instinctively stand in front of her when something feels dangerous, even though she has bodyguards. Those little instincts reveal feelings without characters having to confess them. It's smart because confession would feel premature in a relationship built on coercion and chaos. The show knows that. Now, as the drama heads into its later stretch, the big question becomes, what is the truth about Jiang Shuiying's involvement in the old incident, and what is Black Widow's true identity in relation to it? The show starts dropping more concrete pieces. We learn Black Widow isn't just a random criminal mastermind, she has a real name, past tied to the whistleblower, maybe as a sister, a lover, a colleague, or someone saved by them. There are flashbacks that show her younger self, less polished, more raw. The actress playing her younger version does a great job mirroring the adult Black Widow's eyes, that same intensity, but with more vulnerability. It makes you realize Black Widow wasn't born a villain. She was made. The reveal about Jiang Shuiying is equally layered. The show suggests she signed something that enabled the whistleblower's removal, but it also shows she might have been pressured by her father or mentors, told it was necessary for the company's survival. Again, not an excuse, but context. The show seems interested in how people justify harm when they think they are protecting something bigger. That theme echoes in Chen Kuyuin's dilemma too, because his decision to go to the journalist will also harm innocent employees. The drama is basically asking, is there any way to expose rot without breaking the whole house? Visually, the later episodes start using more nighttime settings, more rain, more reflections. Rain becomes a recurring element whenever characters face truth. It's cleansing imagery, sure, but it's also distortion. Rain on glass makes the world blurry. Truth can be blurry too. There's a gorgeous scene where Jiang Shuiying stands by a window while it rains, her reflection doubled, and you can see two versions of her, the corporate leader and the private woman. The show doesn't need to say it. You feel it. The soundtrack also evolves. Chen Kuyuin's piano motif starts blending with Jiang Shuiying's string rhythm in certain scenes, creating this uneasy harmony. Black Widow's synth pulse becomes more aggressive when she loses control, almost like it's telling you she's spiraling. These musical choices are subtle but effective, especially if you're the kind of viewer who notices when a show's audio is actually telling a story. Now, there's a plot line that I think some people will either love or hate: the introduction of a police investigator character who starts sniffing around the attempted abduction and the corporate scandal. On one hand, it adds realism because yes, crimes should involve police. On the other hand, the investigator is clearly used as a plot lever sometimes, showing up to push information or add pressure. The performance is solid though. The investigator has this skeptical energy, like they've seen rich people dodge accountability before, and they don't want to be fooled. They treat Jiang Shuiying with suspicion, Chen Kuyuin with pity, Black Widow with curiosity. It adds another triangle of tension: law, power, vengeance. The best scene with the investigator is when they question Chen Kuyuin and basically tell him that he's not special, he's just convenient, and if he wants to survive, he needs to stop trusting anyone who benefits from his silence. Chen Kuyuin listens, and you can see him absorbing it. It's like getting advice he already knew but didn't want to accept. That scene reinforces the theme that in this world, trust is dangerous, but isolation is deadly. There's also a beautiful moment of character growth when Chen Kuyuin finally tells his mother the truth, or at least enough truth to stop lying. He doesn't give her corporate details, but he admits he's in trouble, admits he's scared. His mother doesn't react with melodrama. She reacts like a mother, worried, angry, protective. She tells him to come home. He can't. He apologizes. She cries quietly. That scene is shot simply, warm lighting, no flashy editing, just two people on a phone call trying to bridge distance. It grounds the drama again, reminding you what's at stake: family, safety, ordinary life. Jiang Shuiying overhears part of that call and you can see something soften in her, like she's realizing Chen Kuyuin has roots, relationships, a life she's been tearing at without thinking. Later she asks him about his mother in this awkward way, like she's learning how to care. Chen Kuyuin answers cautiously, not wanting to give her more access. That push-pull is so emotionally believable. Caring doesn't erase fear. Black Widow's downward spiral is also fascinating because the show doesn't portray it as, she's going crazy. It portrays it as obsession tightening into desperation. She starts making riskier moves. She shows up in daylight more. She leaves more evidence. She becomes sloppy not because she's stupid, but because her emotions are finally interfering. There's a scene where she threatens someone who used to work on the old project, and her voice shakes slightly. That shake is everything. It tells you she's not as controlled as she wants to appear. Revenge is eating her. And then the show drops a bombshell twist that flips the audience's understanding of the love triangle. Black Widow reveals to Chen Kuyuin that the reason she chose him isn't only because he disrupted her plan. It's because he resembles the whistleblower in a specific way. Not physically necessarily, but in values, in stubborn decency, in how he stands up when it would be easier to bow. She basically admits she's projecting. She's trying to rewrite her past by possessing a new version of what she lost. And when she says that, you can see Chen Kuyuin's disgust and pity collide. Because that's not love. That's grief wearing perfume. That reveal also makes her more tragic, and it makes the drama's title feel even darker. Two women fighting over one courier, but one of them is fighting a ghost through him. That's haunting. Jiang Shuiying's response to this revelation is complicated. Part of her feels threatened, part of her feels guilty, because she knows she's also been using Chen Kuyuin as a tool. The difference is she's started to care in a way that scares her. There's a scene where she tells Chen Kuyuin she'll let him go after the crisis ends, that she'll clear his name, that she'll make sure he can return to a normal life. Chen Kuyuin doesn't believe her fully, but he hears the intention. And the way the actress plays that promise is interesting because you can tell Jiang Shuiying is offering it like a sacrifice. Letting go is not her skill. She's offering him freedom like it's something she's ripping out of herself. The drama also starts exploring the idea of redemption. Can Jiang Shuiying redeem herself if she exposes the truth about the old incident? Or is that just damage control? The show doesn't romanticize redemption. It shows it as painful, costly, and incomplete. There's a moment where Jiang Shuiying meets with the survivor family and tries to offer compensation, and the family rejects it, telling her money can't bring back what was taken. Jiang Shuiying sits there, stiff, absorbing the rejection. She doesn't lash out. She accepts it. That acceptance feels like growth because earlier she would have treated rejection as insubordination. Chen Keyuan watches this from a distance and you can see him struggling. He wants to hate her. It would be simpler. But seeing her face consequences makes his feelings messy. He's still angry. He's still hurt. But he's also human, and humans complicate their own emotions, whether they want to or not. Now, one technical aspect I want to praise is how the show handles action without turning into a different genre. The chases and threats stay grounded. People get tired. They stumble. They make mistakes. Injuries matter. After the attempted kidnapping, Chen Keyuan isn't magically fine the next day. He has bruises. He moves stiffly. He flinches. That continuity makes the danger feel real. The same goes for emotional continuity. When Chen Keyuan and Jiang Shuiying have a tender moment, the next episode doesn't erase their conflict. It carries forward. The show respects memory. Characters remember what was said. They bring it up later. That's rare in dramas that sometimes treat episodes like self-contained emotional resets. Here, grudges and trust build like layers, which makes relationships feel lived in. As we approach the late game reveals, the mystery about the internal traitor inside Qingyun comes to a head. The show reveals that the traitor isn't the obvious smirking rival. It's someone closer, someone who's been playing both sides for years, possibly even someone Jiang Shuiying considered family within the company. The reveal scene is fantastic because it's not a sudden mask-off villain monologue. It's a quiet conversation where the traitor admits it with a calmness that's chilling. They justify it as survival, as revenge for being overlooked, as, you would have done the same. Jiang Shuiying's face goes pale, but she holds it. Chen Keyuan, overhearing or learning about it, realizes again that loyalty in this world is transactional. Black Widow uses the traitor reveal to push her final agenda, public destruction. She wants the truth released without filters, without protections, maximum blast radius. She believes collateral damage is acceptable because the system never cared about collateral damage when it hurt her. That's the moral mirror the show holds up. Victims can become victimizers when pain becomes identity. Black Widow lets that name hang in the air like perfume and poison mixed together, and the second she says it, you can literally see Chen Keyuan's brain do that thing where it tries to reject information because accepting it would rearrange his whole childhood. The name she drops is Chen Mingho. His father. The dad he was told, died in an accident, when Keyuan was still small enough to think adults couldn't lie about big things. And I swear, the way the actor's face shifts here is some of the best work in the entire drama, because it's not a single emotion. It's shock first, then denial, then this ugly little flare of hope like, maybe she's wrong, and then fear because on some level he knows she's not bluffing. He asks her how she knows that name, and she answers with that soft, almost bored voice, because Qingyun learned how to bury people before it learned how to build towers. And okay, can we just talk about how the show shoots that reveal? Because it could have been a standard close-up, dramatic music, done. Instead, they put Chen Keyuan in the foreground with the streetlight behind him, and Black Widow is slightly out of focus for a second, like she's not even the point. The point is what happens to him. The soundtrack doesn't swell. It thins out. It gets quieter. You mostly hear traffic far away and the faint buzz of that street lamp. It makes the moment feel grossly real, like this isn't plot, this is a life fracture. Black Widow doesn't give him the full story at first, of course she doesn't. She's not a charity. She feeds him enough to hook him and then watches him bleed curiosity. She says his father used to work on a logistics encryption system, something that would have protected sensitive corporate transfers, patent documents, internal comms, basically the kind of backbone tech a giant group like Qingyun would drool over. She implies Qingyun took it without proper credit, and when Chen Mingho threatened to expose them, the accident happened. Then she leans in, eyes gleaming, and she says the sentence that made my stomach go cold, and you grew up delivering packages for the same machine that chewed him up. And Chen Keyuan does the most human thing ever. He gets angry at the messenger. He snaps at her, tells her to shut up, asks what she wants, demands proof. He calls her sick for using his father to manipulate him. And Black Widow just smiles wider, because she wants the anger. Anger keeps you close. She says she'll give him proof if he stops pretending Jiang Shuiying is the safer option. Not if he breaks up with her publicly, not if he does something dramatic. Just if he stops trusting her. That's the price. Poison his faith, and she'll hand him the documents. It's such a dirty little psychological trade, and it tells you exactly how Black Widow operates. She doesn't just want the man. She wants the man severed from everyone else first. So Kuyuin does what he's been learning to do in this drama, he plays it calm while he's falling apart inside. He says fine. He says give me something. And Black Widow slides him a flash drive like she's giving him a love letter. Then she brushes her fingers over his knuckles for half a second too long and murmurs, "Now you're finally mine in some way." And he yanks his hand back like he touched a hot stove, which is honestly the correct response because girl, what do you mean by that, in some way? Now, the next episode is basically Chen Kuyuin spiraling with purpose. It's not him sobbing in a corner. It's him moving through his day like a ghost, delivering packages on autopilot while his mind is tearing open old memories. The drama flashes back to little bits of his childhood without overdoing it. You see a small boy waiting by a window. A father's hands building something out of wires. A mother's face stiff when she says, "Don't ask." And these flashes are cut in between present-day shots of Kuyuin gripping the handlebars so hard his knuckles go pale. It's like he's trying to ride away from the past and realizing the past is bolted to the frame. When he finally confronts Jiang Shuiying, it's not in some big melodramatic public setting. It's in her office after hours, because of course it is. That office is basically the show's confession booth. Jiang is reviewing reports, and Kuyuin walks in without waiting for permission. That alone tells you he's changed, because earlier he would have stood outside like a polite citizen begging to be acknowledged. He drops the flash drive on her desk and says his father's name. Just the name. He doesn't even need to add context because Jiang Shuiying's eyes shift immediately, and that tells you everything too. She knows. Maybe not the details, but she knows the name belongs to a buried file. And here's where the acting on Jiang Shuiying's side gets really interesting. She doesn't crumble. She doesn't go full villain. She goes still. She becomes that controlled, terrifyingly calm person again, except now you can sense she's swallowing something. Kuyuin asks her if Qingyun killed his father. She says no. Not instantly, not convincingly. She says, "I don't know." And he laughs. Not because it's funny, but because it's obscene. "You don't know," he repeats, like the idea that a woman who controls an entire group can claim ignorance about a dead man is the cruelest joke. And he asks her how many things she doesn't know because she chooses not to look. Jiang Shuiying finally admits the part that matters: the case was sealed before she took her current position. She was younger then, not powerless but not the final decision maker. She says her father's generation ran Qingyun like an empire, and empires do not apologize. She says she has suspected there were dirty acquisitions tied to certain foundational technologies, but she's never had enough proof to drag it into daylight without collapsing the company and putting thousands of employees at risk. And this is where I started having complicated feelings, because on one hand, that's a realistic CEO dilemma. On the other hand, Kuyuin's father is not a footnote in your corporate stability argument. He was a person. Kuyuin says something that honestly should be printed on a poster for this drama: "You keep talking about risk like it's numbers. My father was the risk you buried." Jiang flinches. Actually flinches. She tries to say she forced the fake dating partly to protect him once she realized he might be connected to past scandals. Because people who benefited from those old crimes would see him as a threat. But Kuyuin doesn't take comfort from that. He calls it what it is: she used him first, and only later started worrying he might get hurt. And the silence after that line is brutal. Now, the show doesn't make Jiang Shuiying suddenly become a saint. Thank goodness. She doesn't start crying and begging forgiveness. She does something colder but more in character, she offers him access. She says if he wants truth, he'll have to go through Qingyun's internal archives, legal vaults, and people who will destroy him if they catch him. She tells him she can open some doors, but once he walks in, she can't guarantee his safety. It's the closest she gets to saying "I'm sorry" in her language. She's basically saying, "I'll stop blocking you." And Kuyuin, furious and exhausted, agrees. Not because he trusts her again, but because he needs answers more than he needs comfort. This is where the plot shifts into full conspiracy mode, and I loved that the writers didn't forget the courier theme. Because the way Kuyuin and Jiang start moving information around is literally through delivery routes, drop points, package codes, mundane logistics turned into spycraft. There's a whole sequence where Kuyuin uses his courier scanner to swap labels on two innocuous parcels, and inside one is a copied archive file, hidden beneath bubble wrap like it's contraband. It's such a clever way of using his skills as actual plot tools, not just, he's a courier because the title said so. Black Widow, meanwhile, is watching all of this like she's watching her favorite show, except she also keeps trying to rewrite the script. She sends Kuyuin messages that are half warning, half flirt, half threat, which is, yes, that's three halves, that's how she communicates. She keeps popping up at the exact worst times, and the show makes it clear she has surveillance of her own. There's a scene where Kuyuin meets a former Qingyun legal clerk in a cheap noodle shop, trying to get information about the sealed Chen Mingho file, and just when the clerk starts to talk, Black Widow strolls past the window outside. Doesn't come in. Doesn't interrupt. Just passes by slowly enough for Kuyuin to see her. It's like she's tapping the glass of his life saying, "Remember, I'm here." The supporting cast starts shining in this stretch too. That suspicious IT guy I mentioned earlier? He finally becomes more than a red herring. You learn he's not the mastermind, he's a coward with a mortgage and a sick parent, basically a guy who got squeezed by someone higher up and made terrible choices. He meets Kuyuin in a parking garage and tries to bargain information for protection. His hands shake. His eyes dart. He's not evil for fun, he's desperate. And Kuyuin, who has every reason to hate anyone tied to Qingyun now, still hesitates before turning him in, because Kuyuin's defining trait is he can't stop seeing people as people even when it hurts him. That's why he's the moral center of the show. There's also Jiang Shuiying's assistant, who becomes weirdly fascinating because her loyalty starts to look less like blind devotion and more like belief in Jiang as the lesser evil. We get a scene where the assistant quietly warns Jiang that Kuyuin is becoming a vulnerability, not because she hates Kuyuin, but because she knows the board will use him like a knife. Jiang listens, eyes distant, and then says, "I know." 2 words. And somehow it reads like she hates that she knows. The assistant then does something I didn't expect, she helps Kuyuin anyway, just in small practical ways, like moving meeting times, deleting security logs, creating gaps. She never becomes warm. She just chooses a side, and her side is not the board. Okay, so, halfway through this back half arc, the drama drops one of its best twists. Black Widow isn't just an outside predator. She used to be inside Qingyun. Not as a glamorous executive, but as someone who learned their systems from the inside out. Her real name gets revealed in a file Kuyuin finds, Luo Shiying. She was tied to a special projects legal team years ago, and the Chen Mingho case was one of the things that broke her. The show flashes back to her younger self, hair pulled back, plain suit, eyes less hardened. She tried to report irregularities, and Qingyun chewed her up too. She didn't lose her life, but she lost her identity. She disappeared, rebuilt herself into Black Widow, and started collecting debts. Now, does that make her sympathetic? A little. Does it make her less terrifying? Absolutely not. If anything, it makes her scarier because now you understand she's not playing at revenge, she's living it. She's not flirting with Kuyuin because she's lonely. She's orbiting him because he's the last living link to the injustice that created her. In her mind, if she can take him, she can rewrite the ending. It's twisted, but it's coherent, and that's what makes a villain memorable. The romance side keeps boiling under all this, and the show does something really smart, it makes attraction feel inconvenient. Kuyuin and Jiang share a quiet moment after a near-miss with security where they hide in a service corridor, and for a second they are pressed close, not in a sexy way, in a "don't breathe too loud or we're dead" way. Jiang's hand is on his shoulder. Kuyuin's body is tense. Their eyes meet, and you can see it, the trust is shattered, but the pull is still there. That's the ugliest kind of chemistry because it doesn't wait for permission. It just exists. They don't kiss there. The show resists the easy fan service, and honestly, I respect it. Instead, Jiang whispers, almost to herself, "I didn't know." And Kuyuin whispers back, "You didn't want to." That line hits like a slap because it's true and unfair at the same time. Jiang looks like she wants to argue, but she can't find a clean lie. Then footsteps approach, and the moment dies, swallowed by survival again. That's basically the whole tone of their relationship. Every time something real tries to surface, the world stomps on it. Black Widow gets her own emotionally loaded scene that surprised me. She's alone, staring at an old photo of herself in a Qingyun ID badge, and she tears it in half. Not dramatic sobbing. Just this quiet, controlled act of self-hatred. The soundtrack here is minimal, mostly a low hum, and her face looks empty in a way that's almost worse than rage. And then she snaps back into seduction mode the second she hears someone outside her door, because that's her armor now. It's a performance she's practiced until it became her skin. Now let's talk about directing choices, because the show's director is clearly having fun with tension. The boardroom scenes become increasingly claustrophobic, even though they are shot in massive spaces. That's not a contradiction, it's a trick. They use longer lenses so the background compresses, making the room feel like it's closing in. When board members talk, the camera lingers a beat too long on the person being discussed, like the lens is eavesdropping. When Jiang speaks, the cuts are cleaner, controlled, matching her discipline. When Kuyuin is in those rooms, the editing becomes slightly choppier, reflecting his discomfort in a space that isn't built for him. There's one scene where Kuyuin attends a Qingyun event again, but this time he's not just the boyfriend. He's there as bait to flush out someone inside the company who's still moving stolen documents. The lighting is gorgeous, all warm gold and chandelier glow, but the sound design keeps layering in tiny ominous clicks and murmurs underneath, like the party is sitting on top of a machine. Kuyuin stands near the buffet pretending to be relaxed, and the actor does this brilliant, fake calm, where he's smiling at people while his eyes keep scanning exits. He looks like a deer in a suit. And then the show rewards that tension with an actual payoff. The traitor is revealed not as some random executive, but as a board member who has been positioning himself as Jiang's mentor figure. This man has spent the whole drama calling her, "my dear," acting protective, publicly praising her leadership. The reveal that he was involved in Chen Mingho's case and is still burying evidence is sickening in that real-world way where you realize monsters often wear fatherly smiles. When Kuyuin sees the file with this man's signature, he goes pale, and Jiang's expression changes too, because that's a betrayal on multiple levels. It's not just corporate. It's personal history, the kind of betrayal that probably taught Jiang to stop trusting anyone. The confrontation between Jiang and this board member is one of the acting highlights of the series. No screaming. No thrown glasses. Jiang walks into the boardroom, places the file on the table, and asks one question: "Did you sign this?" Her voice is steady, but there's a tremor deep down like an earthquake held behind glass. The man chuckles, tries to dismiss it, tries to pivot into, "for the good of the company." And Jiang, without raising her volume, says something like, "You keep saying the company like it's a god. It's just people. And you sacrificed them." The way the actress delivers that line is ice and fire at once, and for the first time, you see the board actually hesitate around her. Not because she's pretty. Because she's dangerous in a different way now. She's willing to burn the old rules. Kuyuin's arc in these later episodes becomes less about being trapped between two women and more about refusing to be owned. And yes, he's still emotionally tangled, but the show stops treating him like the prize and starts treating him like the decider. There's a fantastic scene where Black Widow corners him again, offering him a deal. She'll leak the board members' crimes to the media in a way that guarantees maximum destruction, but only if Kuyuin leaves Jiang and comes with her, not as a lover necessarily, but as a partner in vengeance. She frames it like freedom. She says Jiang will always choose the company. She says Jiang is incapable of love without control. And Kuyuin just stares at her and says, quietly, you don't want me free. You want me loyal. And Black Widow's smile falters for the first time in the series. Just for a second. Because he saw her. That's what makes Chen Kuyuin such a satisfying lead. He learns to name the manipulation without becoming cruel. He tells Black Widow he's sorry for what happened to her, but he won't become her weapon. He tells her he won't let his father's death turn him into someone who enjoys destroying. And she laughs, but it sounds strained, like she's laughing to avoid feeling. She asks him if he thinks he's better than her. And Kuyuin replies, no. I'm just tired. That line is devastating because it's not heroic. It's human exhaustion. It's a man who didn't ask to be in a war and is now trying to survive without becoming hollow. The show also ramps up the action in a way that doesn't feel random. There's a kidnapping attempt. Of course there is. Corporate dramas love a good kidnapping. But the way it happens is clever. They target Kuyuin during a delivery route, because that's where he's predictable. They use a fake address, a fake signature, and Kuyuin walks into a trap because he's trained to trust the system. That's darkly poetic. The scene is shot handheld, frantic, with sound dropping out when he gets shoved into a van, then returning in a muffled roar like you're hearing through fabric. You feel his panic. And Jiang Shuiying's response here is where the show makes you re-evaluate her. She doesn't send security and wait. She goes herself. Not alone, but she's there, in a car, hair slightly undone, face tight with focus. The assistant tries to stop her, saying it's unsafe. Jiang says something that reveals a crack of genuine care. If they wanted me, they'd have me already. They took him because he's mine to control. And then she pauses, like she realizes how that sounded, and adds, softer, and because he doesn't deserve this. That tiny correction matters. It shows she's learning, slowly, painfully, how to separate possession from protection. The rescue sequence is tense and surprisingly emotional because when they finally get Kuyuin out, he doesn't run into Jiang's arms dramatically. He's shaken, bruised, furious. He looks at her like she's part of the reason this happened, which she is. And Jiang looks at him like she's terrified she crossed a line she can't uncross. They sit in the car afterward and don't speak for a full minute. The soundtrack is just a low thrum. Then Kuyuin says, this is what your world does. And Jiang replies, no. This is what my world allowed. That difference is huge. It's her first real admission of responsibility without excuses. From a technical standpoint, the show's color grading shifts noticeably after that kidnapping arc. The earlier corporate blue tones start getting warmer in Jiang's scenes, like the show is visually suggesting she's becoming less machine, more person. Meanwhile, Black Widow's scenes get even darker, more contrasty, with sharper highlights. It's like the visuals are tracking moral trajectories, not in a simplistic, good vs evil, way, but in a, who is capable of change, way. Dialogue stays strong, but it gets more emotionally blunt. Kuyuin stops being polite all the time. He starts saying what he thinks. There's a scene where he tells Jiang, you can't buy redemption with my life. And Jiang doesn't snap back. She listens. That's growth. It's small, but it's real. Now, the ending stretch. This is where the drama either fumbles or lands, and I'm relieved to say duo Wanita Satu Kurir mostly lands it, with a couple of choices that will absolutely divide viewers, and I already know the comment section is going to be a battlefield. The final plan becomes a three-way collision. Jiang wants to expose the corrupt board member and clean Qingyun without destroying the entire company. Kuyuin wants the truth about his father publicly acknowledged and the people responsible held accountable in a real legal sense, not just internal politics. Black Widow wants maximum damage, because she believes only ashes count as justice. These goals overlap just enough to create temporary alliances and clash enough to make every scene feel unstable. Kuyuin uses his courier network one last time in the finale arc in a way that made me clap like an idiot. He coordinates with other couriers, people who have no idea they are part of a corporate takedown, to move encrypted copies of the Chen Minghe file to multiple locations. It's like decentralizing truth so it can't be erased. And there's a gorgeous little metaphor there: couriers, the invisible working class that keeps society moving, becoming the carriers of accountability. The show doesn't preach it, it just shows it, and it hits. Jiang Shuiying, for her part, makes a decision that feels both brave and painfully believable. She records a meeting with the corrupt board member where he basically admits, in that slippery, I didn't say it directly, way, that Chen Minghe was eliminated. She uses her own position to trap him, but doing so means she's also incriminating parts of Qingyun's legacy. She knows the stock will crash. She knows she'll be blamed. She does it anyway. And the actress plays that choice with this quiet dread, like she's walking into a storm she can't outrun. No triumphant music. Just inevitability. Black Widow finds out about Jiang's plan and tries to hijack it, because of course she does. She leaks pieces early to create chaos, hoping to force the company into collapse. This is where her character becomes almost tragic, because you can see she can't tolerate a justice that isn't catastrophic. Anything less feels like losing to the people who broke her. There's a confrontation between her and Keyuin on a rooftop, because dramas love rooftops and honestly, so do I, and Keyuin begs her to stop. He tells her the truth coming out is enough. He tells her his father wouldn't want innocent employees punished. Black Widow replies, "Your father is dead. Don't speak for him." And that line is brutal because it's true in the meanest way. Keyuin can't prove what his father would have wanted. He can only choose what he wants now. That rooftop scene is also where the triangle gets emotionally resolved, not in a neat, who ends up together, way, but in a, who finally sees what they are doing, way. Jiang arrives, not with guards, but alone. She tells Black Widow she knows her real name. She tells her she read the old files and saw how Qingyun crushed her too. She offers her something unexpected, a deal for reduced charges if she turns over the remaining evidence cleanly and testifies, not as a villain, but as a witness. And Black Widow laughs in her face, calling her arrogant for thinking she can negotiate redemption like it's a contract. Then Jiang says a line that I did not expect from her character, and it hit hard: I'm not offering you redemption. I'm offering you an ending that doesn't leave you empty. And Black Widow goes quiet. Not softened, not forgiven, but quiet. You can see for a split second the woman she used to be, the one who might have wanted a life that wasn't fueled by revenge. And then she hardens again, because that's what she does when anything gets close to tenderness. The fight that follows isn't a flashy martial arts thing. It's messy. It's grabbing wrists, shoving, desperation. Keyuin tries to separate them like a man who never wanted to be the rope in a tug-of-war. Black Widow nearly falls, and Keyuin catches her arm on instinct. That instinct almost costs him, because she twists, trying to pull him with her, not necessarily to kill him, but to make him choose in the most dramatic irreversible way possible. Jiang grabs Keyuin's other arm. And the framing here is so on the nose yet effective: two women, one man between them, literally pulled apart. Keyuin makes the choice that defines the ending: he lets go of Black Widow. Not in a, I don't care if you die, way. In a, I refuse to be controlled by your chaos, way. Black Widow doesn't fall to her death in this drama, and I'm glad they didn't go for the cheap shock. She drops onto a lower ledge, injured but alive, and instead of climbing back up, she looks at Keyuin and smiles through pain like she's proud he finally chose something. Then she disappears into the stairwell before security arrives, because Black Widow doesn't do handcuffs unless she wants to. So what happens to Qingyun? The fallout is delicious. The stock drops. Media explodes. The drama does these rapid montages of headlines, social media clips, commentary shows, and it feels very 2026 in that exhausting way where truth becomes content within minutes. Jiang Shuiying is dragged in public. People call her corrupt, people call her brave, people call her naive. The board member is arrested, but not before he tries to throw Jiang under the bus, claiming she orchestrated everything. There's a courtroom scene that's actually well written, not just dramatic speeches. Keyuin testifies. His voice shakes at first, but then steadies. He says his father's name out loud in a public record, and you can tell that alone is a kind of victory. He's giving his father back his existence. The most emotional moment for me in the finale isn't a kiss or a confession. It's Kyuin visiting his father's grave, or rather the place he thought was his father's grave, only to learn the burial records were tampered with. He stands there holding a small package, something symbolic, like an old circuit board piece he found in his mother's storage. He sets it down and says, quietly, "I deliver things. I didn't know I'd deliver you back to the world. And I'm not going to lie, I got a lump in my throat." Because it's so simple, and it ties the title to the emotional core. Jiang Shuiying's ending is complicated, as it should be. She resigns. Not dramatically. She signs papers, hands over authority to an interim committee, and walks out of Qingyun's building without looking back. The shot mirrors the early episodes where she walked in like she owned the air. Now she walks out like she's finally breathing. Her assistant watches her go, expression unreadable, and then turns back toward the chaos inside, implying she'll stay and keep the machine from devouring everyone. That assistant remains consistent to the end, which I appreciate. Not everyone gets a soft arc. Kyuin and Jiang do not end with some fireworks proposal. Thank God. They meet one last time in a quiet place, a convenience store near Kyuin's neighborhood, the kind of humble location that would have been invisible to Jiang early on. Jiang buys a cheap bottled tea and fumbles with the cap like she's out of practice with normal life. Kyuin watches her, and you can see he still has feelings, but they are bruised feelings. Jiang tells him she can't undo what she did to him, but she's done using people. Kyuin tells her he's not ready to forgive her, and he doesn't pretend otherwise. Then he says something gentle anyway, "But I'm glad you chose to stop lying." They sit in silence, and it's not romantic bliss. It's two people acknowledging they matter to each other in a story that wasn't kind. And then the drama gives you its final sting with Black Widow. In the last scenes, we see her in a different city, hair lighter, outfit less theatrical, sitting in a cafe reading an article about Qingyun's scandal. She smiles when she sees Chen Mingho's name in print. Not because she loves Kyuin, not because she's suddenly good, but because she got what she wanted in the only way she knows how. She forced truth to bleed out. A man approaches her, calling her by a new alias, implying she's already building her next web. Before she leaves, she types a message to Kyuin that simply says, "I told you the truth would hurt." He reads it, doesn't respond, and deletes it. That deletion is his closure. Not revenge. Not romance. Just refusal to keep carrying her thread. Now, let's be real. The ending will frustrate the viewers who wanted a clean couple ending with a wedding and babies and a soft OST montage. This is not that drama. It's a story about power and consent and truth and what it costs to get answers. The romance is there, but it's not packaged as a reward. It's portrayed as something that can grow in bad soil and still be real, which is uncomfortable and honestly more mature than most fake dating plots. Performance-wise, the cast carries this show hard. The actor playing Chen Kyuin deserves genuine praise because he never lets Kyuin become a passive victim or a smug hero. He's consistently human, and that's harder than it looks. Jiang Shuiying's actress nails the controlled intensity without making her a robot, and the gradual cracks in her armor are played with restraint rather than melodrama. And the actress behind Black Widow? She is dangerously charismatic. Even when you hate what she's doing, you understand how she gets away with it. She plays seduction like a weapon and pain like a secret she refuses to share. The script's biggest strength is that it respects the audience's intelligence. It doesn't spoon-feed motivations, and it doesn't pretend morality is simple. When it stumbles, it's usually in the mid-series stretches where a couple antagonists feel like placeholders until the real villains step forward, and there are moments where the corporate jargon gets a bit heavy. But the emotional beats are specific enough that I never felt like I was watching characters speak in generic phrases. People say things that hurt, then they live with the consequences instead of instantly patching it up. Cinematography and music, for me, are big reason the drama feels premium. It's stylish without being empty. The reflections, the cold versus warm palette shifts, the way sound drops out during shocks, all of it creates a mood that sticks. Costume design is character storytelling. Set design makes Qingyun feel like a beautiful prison. Even the editing rhythm changes based on who's driving the scene, which is such a nerdy detail, but it matters because it shapes how you feel without you realizing why. The themes hit close to real life too. Class isn't just aesthetic here, it's survival. A CEO can make scandal manageable. A courier can have his entire life ruined by the same scandal. Consent gets explored in a way that's not preachy but is definitely intentional, especially in the fake dating coercion and the way Kuyuin's autonomy is constantly negotiated by people with more money and influence. And the drama has a surprisingly sharp take on how media turns human tragedy into entertainment, which is funny because yes, I'm literally reviewing it on YouTube right now, so hi, we're all implicated. If you like dramas like those glossy love triangles where everyone is pretty and the worst thing that happens is a misunderstanding at a cafe, this might be too stressful for you. But if you like messy character psychology, corporate intrigue that actually feels dangerous, and a love triangle that's more like a moral tug-of-war than a cute rivalry, do a Wanita Satu Kurir is absolutely your kind of ride. It reminded me of the energy of modern thriller romance hybrids where romance doesn't get to exist in a vacuum. It has that every kiss has consequences vibe, except it doesn't even hand you that many kisses, it just hands you tension until you start screaming at your screen. My personal verdict. This drama is chaotic in a way that feels purposeful, and it sticks the emotional landing more than I expected from a title that sounds like it could be a meme. I'm giving Dua Wanita Satu Kurir a solid 8.6 out of 10. Not perfect, not spotless, but genuinely gripping, stylish, and anchored by performances that make the morally messy choices feel like real choices. I'd recommend it to anyone who wants a romance plot that doesn't treat power dynamics like a cute accessory, and to anyone who loves watching a normal guy slowly grow a spine in a world designed to crush him. Thanks for hanging out with me all the way through this review on Bongo Gaming. If you made it this far, you are officially my kind of viewer, because you clearly enjoy emotional distress as a hobby. If you want more drama breakdowns where I actually say what I think, hit like so the algorithm knows we're building a little corner for people who love fiction with teeth. Share the video with that friend who always claims they don't watch dramas, and then gets addicted in 2 episodes. And if you haven't subscribed to Bongo Gaming yet, slide in and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next time a show drags all of us through the mud together. Alright, I'm done for now. Go drink water and clench your jaw, and I'll see you in the next mess.